Chapter 4207. Even so, they knew that relying on their own strength, it would not be easy to get back at them. Now that there was a rare opportunity to support the strong and trample on the weak, they would naturally spare no effort in ridiculing him. Faced with the boos of the audience, Huang Xiaotao, who was already somewhat nervous, could not help but clench her fists. However, Lin Yi, who was standing next to her, still maintained a calm and composed expression. Instead, he even laughed as if nothing had happened, causing the audience to be puzzled. "What are you laughing at?" Su Lingchong and Meng Tong exchanged glances, then pretended to have a sudden realization. "Oh, this is the legendary disguise of awkwardness, right? The skin of the pretentious newcomer king is not as thick as we thought. Don't think too much about it. Especially what Chong isn't the way you two address each other. The reason why I didn't fight you in the individual battle was because I was too lazy to fight you. I didn't expect you to actually take it seriously." Lin Yi pursed his lips with a faint smile. "You've really reached a certain level of shameless boasting. With your insignificant strength of the early gold core stage, you dare to say that you're going easy on me, a middle gold core stage? Do you believe these words yourself?" Su Lingchong immediately sneered. The crowd jeered as well. Su Lingchong was at least a level higher than Lin Yi, be it in terms of strength or the performance in the single combat. It was obvious who was stronger and who was weaker. Saying that he was going easy on Lin Yi just because he couldn't beat Lin Yi was too much of a child's play. "I believe it. You guys don't believe it now, but you'll believe it soon." Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders with a relaxed expression. He turned his head and exchanged a glance with Huang Xiaotao with a smile. Seeing his expression, the originally nervous Huang Xiaotao suddenly relaxed for some reason. It was as if the overbearing pressure from Su Lingchong and Meng Tong had disappeared in an instant. At this moment, there was only Lin Yi in her eyes. "Don't deceive yourself. I'll make you wake up right now." Su Lingchong snorted coldly. He immediately pounced towards Lin Yi and made the first move. Meng Tong, who was beside him, also pounced at the same time, but his target was Huang Xiaotao. Even though it was a duo battle with their strength, they didn't need to cooperate at all, and a one-on-one battle was already sufficient to annihilate their opponents. After all, no matter if it was Lin Yi or Huang Xiaotao, both of them had merely been defeated by them. Meng Tong attacked menacingly. The martial skill he used to deal with Huang Xiaotao was still his usual 1,000 kicks. Huang Xiaotao had been killed in the same way during the one-on-one battle. This time it was merely a repeat. As for Su Lingchong, he had revealed his secret weapon, the Nine Heavens Poison Dragon Whip. The whip was 15 meters long, made from the top-grade dark iron, and divided into 360 sections. Each section was a sharp dagger, glowing with a poisonous green light. No matter how powerful one was, once the Ninth Heaven Poison Dragon Whip opened a wound, even if one didn't die, they would lose half of their life. Su Lingchong was an expert in the middle stage of the Gold Elixir realm. His strength was comparable to an ordinary late-stage Gold Elixir realm, and with the Ninth Heaven Poison Dragon Whip, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Therefore, in the inner disciple competition, where experts above the late stage of the Gold Elixir realm rarely showed up, he could be so invincible. That was a matter of course. In fact, after his strength had skyrocketed, Su Lingchong's confidence had become unprecedentedly strong. Not to mention killing Lin Yi in one-on-one, even if Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were to attack together, he could still easily crush them. Now that he had asked Meng Tong to cooperate with him, he already thought highly of Lin Yi. The Ninth Heaven Poison Dragon Whip made a sharp whistling sound, turning into a sky full of whip shadows, instantly covering the top of Lin Yi's head. Suddenly there was a sound of people gasping. At this moment, Su Lingchong was unprecedentedly serious. The power of the Ninth Heaven Poison Dragon Whip was obviously a level higher than when he fought against a late-stage Gold Elixir realm expert in the first round of the one-on-one battle. Even the spectators in the arena couldn't help but feel a chill down their spine after seeing it. If they were in Lin Yi's position, they would most likely be directly killed. However, Lin Yi seemed to be prepared for this. The speed of the Ninth Heaven Poison Dragon Whip could not be said to be slow, but his speed was even faster. To be precise, his reaction was faster. Long before Su Lingchong attacked him, he had already left his original position in a flash and quickly approached Huang Xiaotao on the other side. He wanted to use the advantage of numbers to cooperate with Huang Xiaotao to get rid of Meng Tong first, creating a situation of 2 against 1, and then turn around to deal with the more troublesome Su Lingchong. Everyone present was an expert, so they instantly understood Lin Yi's intention. Su Lingchong and Meng Tong, who were in the arena, were naturally no exception. "Humph, you're dreaming, but to play such a small trick under my eyes, you're looking down on me, aren't you?" Su Lingqiong responded with a sneer. Following his voice, the ninth heaven poison dragon whip, which had already transformed into thousands of times, suddenly became even more overwhelming. It chased after Lin Yi's figure and shrouded it all the way. This posture was actually prepared to take advantage of the situation to capture both Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao in one fell swoop. The situation on the arena became extremely dangerous once again. At this moment, both Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were like prey in the mouth of a poisonous dragon. They could be swallowed at any time and not even their bones would be left. At the same time, in order to avoid being accidentally injured by the ninth heaven poison dragon whip, Meng Tong, who was originally attacking Huang Xiaotao, could only take the initiative to take a step back. Although he was Su Lingqiong's partner, the attack of the ninth heaven poison dragon whip was not to be trifled with. Once he was caught in it, even Su Lingqiong would not be able to save him. The outcome has been decided. Everyone in the arena made their judgment. Even the referee, a nascent soul expert, felt that there was no suspense. Unlike the audience, he did not feel that Lin Yi was weak at all. Instead, he rather admired the performance of Lin Yi, the newcomer king. However, even so, he did not think that Lin Yi would be able to survive under such a powerful attack. In the face of absolute strength, no matter how good one's talent, potential, or intelligence, it was all just fleeting clouds. It would not change the outcome in the slightest. Grandpa, quickly save junior brother and senior sister Xiaotao. Shanghai Laner, who was on the grandstand, was so anxious that her tears were about to fall. She hurriedly pulled Shanghai Tianhua's arm and said. Shanghai Tianhua frowned. Even he felt that the situation was not too good. However, he was not in a hurry to act. He turned his head and comforted her. Little Lan, don't be anxious. Lin Yi should not be defeated so easily. Let's wait a little longer. Chapter 4208. Of course, the reason why Shanghai Tianhua dared to say something like that to wait wasn't purely because he believed in Lin Yi's strength. Even if Lin Yi really didn't have any strength to resist, with his strength, wanting to save Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao was only a matter of a thought, and there wouldn't be any mishaps. However, in the next moment, Shanghai Tianhua was suddenly slightly shocked, as the situation on the stage suddenly changed. Bang! Under the ninth heaven venom whip's shadow that covered the sky and covered the earth, two balls of crimson-red flames suddenly erupted. The ninth heaven venom whip that Su Lingqiong was so proud of was actually broken on the spot, and its power was so shocking that it was simply shocking. Amidst the exclamations of surprise, the crowd of Golden Core stage experts below the stage finally recognized the two balls of crimson-red flames clearly. Shockingly, it was actually two fire palm shadows, one small and one large, and the shape of the 8 trigrams faintly appeared in the middle. They split into two directions and whizzed out respectively, the small one striking towards Meng Tong, and the large one going straight for Su Lingqiong. At this moment, Su Lingqiong and Meng Tong were still immersed in a state of disbelief and astonishment. Before the two of them could react, they heard two bangs accompanied by the muffled sounds of bones breaking. After that, they were like two kites with their strings cut as they were directly thrown off the ring, and they didn't even have the slightest room to retaliate. The frenzy 8 trigrams palm strike that was created at the last minute actually had such a formidable might. Instantly, the sound of people drawing in cold breaths rose and fell, and everyone looked at each other in dismay, unable to say a word for a long time. Compared to sending the two of them flying with a single move, what was even more shocking was the injuries on their bodies at this moment. Meng Tong was fine because the main attacker was Huang Xiaotao. Although it was the same frenzy 8 trigrams palm strike that came from the same source, its might was obviously much weaker, so although Meng Tong was in a sorry state, his injuries weren't too heavy. The one who was truly miserable was Su Lingqiong. The frenzy 8 trigrams palm strike that struck his body came from Lin Yi, and in terms of might, it was at least at the peak of the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. Moreover, it struck his chest so unexpectedly, and this young Master Su, who was insufferably arrogant after his powerful return, directly fell to the ground at this moment with bulging eyes, and his breathing was more than it was exhaled. Obviously he wasn't going to make it. Charge! Meng Tong instantly roared with grief and indignation when he saw this, and he couldn't care about his own injuries as he frantically rushed to the side of Su Lingqiong who was on the verge of death. At the same time, a figure suddenly followed closely. It was the person in charge of the inner court competition this time, Su Yuanjing. He's still on his last breath. Quick, bring him for treatment. Su Yuanjing anxiously instructed after checking Su Lingqiong's condition. As anxious as he was the host of the inner disciple competition. No matter what, he could not be absent. Thus, he could only allow Meng Tong to bring him away for the time being. Meng Tong hurriedly nodded. He couldn't be bothered to look at Lin Yi who was on the stage anymore. Enduring the pain, he picked up Su Lingchong who was on the ground and walked out. The 3 major pavilions had specialized infirmaries where doctors gathered. Moreover, everyone would try their best to save Su Lingchong on account of Su Yuanzheng. Although Su Lingchong's condition was very weak at the moment, he might still have a chance of survival. However, just as he carried Su Lingchong out of the north arena and arrived at a secluded place, the mysterious man in black suddenly appeared in front of him. After a gust of wind blew past, the mysterious man in black, together with Meng Tong and Su Lingchong, disappeared without a trace. No one knew where they went. At this moment on the arena, after being stunned for a long time, the referee finally announced the victory of Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. The way everyone looked at Lin Yi was completely different from before. This Lin Yi is really fucking amazing. Someone's mouth twitched as he discussed. Nonsense, what kind of eyesight do you have? You only realized it now? I already knew that this newcomer king is amazing. Previously in the single battle finals, he deliberately admitted defeat. I could see it with one look. That's right, he probably doesn't want to fight one-on-one with Su Lingchong at all. He's planning to save it for the double battle. It'll save him a lot of time and effort. That seems to be the case. Wait a minute. Both of you didn't say this before. Didn't you say that Lin Yi couldn't possibly be a match for Su Lingchong? Why did it change now? Grandpa, look at junior brother and senior sister Xiaotao, aren't they amazing? Their combined palm strike is an ultimate move that I practiced with them a few days ago. The worry on Shanghai Laner's face had long disappeared. While she was happy for Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, she boasted to Shanghai Tianhua. Hee little Lana, you just went over to watch them practice, right? Shanghai Tianhua teased her with a smile. That's still at the same time. There's also my credit. Shanghai Laner stuck out her tongue cutely. Shanghai Tianhua immediately laughed and patted Shanghai Laner's head lightly. The gaze that he looked at Lin Yi in the distance was obviously more appreciative than before. To be honest, even he didn't expect that Lin Yi's counterattack would be so swift and fierce. He was obviously only at the early stage of the Gold Core realm, but he was able to kill the insufferably arrogant Su Lingchong in one move. Such a performance was really shocking. If Su Lingchong was just an ordinary middle-stage Gold Core realm expert, then it would be fine. The problem was that he was also an expert of the Gold Core realm who had a perfect breakthrough. They were both experts of the Gold Core realm. Lin Yi's sudden counterattack really made everyone understand one thing. Even among geniuses there were different levels. Su Lingchong and Meng Tong were originally the pair with the highest chance of winning the double battle. In the end, they were killed by Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao in one move. After that, the double battle simply became the stage for the two of them. No matter what kind of opponent they faced from the beginning to the end, they were killed in one move. There was no change to speak of. From the beginning to the end, it was the frenzied 8 trigrams palm strike. At the final stage, everyone present could even figure out their moves. However, even so, it didn't change the situation at all. It was just the frenzied 8 trigrams palm strike. Even if they could see the moves clearly, so what? At the beginning there was no solution, and at the end there was still no solution. This was the gap of absolute strength. As they killed in one move, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao demonstrated to everyone what it meant to be an invincible existence of the Gold Core realm. In several rounds, when faced with such an overbearing pair, their opponents couldn't even muster up the slightest bit of fighting spirit. As soon as they came up, they hurriedly opened their mouths to admit defeat. In any case, the invincibility of the Lin Yi pair was obvious to all. Even if they admitted defeat, it wouldn't be shameful. Moreover, they could avoid getting injured, so there was no need to stubbornly persist. It was worth mentioning that this included the Yuzhe and Nantianba duo. Even in their dreams, they wanted to trample Lin Yi under their feet. However, the situation was stronger than they were. Even Su Lingchong was almost beaten to death. If they didn't have eyes and joined in, wouldn't that be courting death? In the end, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao locked onto the throne of first place in the double battle without any suspense. Compared to Su Lingchong's first place in the single battle, they were much more impressive. R1152. Chapter 4209. There was no doubt as to who was stronger between Lin Yi and Su Lingchong. The latter was almost beaten to a dead man, and he might even be a corpse now. Was there any suspense in the outcome? With the end of the double battle, the inner court competition was over. The points of the single battle and the double battle were tallied. Lin Yi had 99 points and he deserved to be ranked first. The title of the newcomer king of Welcome Pavilion would change from now on, and he would become the newcomer king of the inner court. As for Huang Xiaotao, although she did not get a single point in the single battle, she got 50 points in the double battle, which was enough to guarantee her entry into the top 50, and she was ranked 32nd. It was worth mentioning that although Su Lingchong was defeated in one move in the double battle, he was ranked first in the single battle, so he also got 50 points, and he was tied with Huang Xiaotao for the 32nd place. As for Meng Tong, Yu Zhe, and Nan Tianba, their points were much lower than these three, but in the end they still managed to squeeze into the top 50, just that they were ranked at the bottom. The inner court competition had come to an end, but the Golden Core stage disciples that had gathered at the North Island Arena didn't disperse. On the contrary, they became even more nervous and agitated at this moment. According to the practice of previous years, the meaning of the inner court competition, in addition to the allocation of cultivation resources for the next year, had another more important meaning, which was for the leaders of the three pavilions to choose disciples. At this time, the elders of the Elders Guild, including the leaders of the three pavilions, had all appeared one by one. They would consider the performance of the disciples of the Gold Core stage in the inner court competition, measure their qualifications and potential, and then decide who to accept as a disciple. Looking at all the leaders of the three pavilions who were present in terms of status and strength, Shanghai Tianhua was ranked first, so the selection of disciples naturally had to start with him. Of course, Shanghai Tianhua rarely accepted disciples, and there were very few people who could catch his eye. Normally, it would take decades or even hundreds of years. He might not accept one of them, but out of respect, regardless of whether he accepted or not, he had to make the first request. The audience held their breath, although they all knew that they could not be chosen by Shanghai Tianhua. But when Shanghai Tianhua's imposing gaze swept over them, their hearts still couldn't help but skip a beat. Unfortunately, their luck was destined to fail. Shanghai Tianhua slowly swept his gaze around and finally said 4 words, "Lin Yi. Not bad." The whole audience burst into an uproar. Not only were they shocked that Shanghai Tianhua would actually choose someone, but they were even more shocked that he was going to cross the line to choose someone. Each of the higher-ups belonged to one of the 3 great pavilions. Normally, they could only choose people from their own pavilions and could not choose people from other pavilions, because that was something that could easily be taboo. Although Lin Yi was a newcomer in the Welcoming Pavilion, he had already been assigned to Blue Cloud Pavilion. This was something that everyone could see. However, Shanghai Tianhua was the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master. This was clearly against the rules. However, after Shanghai Tianhua finished speaking, the Golden Core stage disciples below were in an uproar. However, the higher-ups were still sitting upright and still. He didn't look surprised at all, nor did he have any intention of standing out to nitpick. With the current strength of Soaring Sky Pavilion, it was not surprising that they broke the convention. Since Shanghai Tianhua had personally spoken, it didn't matter which pavilion Lin Yi was originally a disciple of. Thinking back to the beginning with Huang Xiaotao's personal experience, since Soaring Sky Pavilion could demote their disciples to Blue Cloud Pavilion, then naturally they could also accept disciples from Blue Cloud Pavilion. Especially since this was personally spoken by Shanghai Tianhua, no one would have any objections. Under the stage, everyone's eyes focused on Lin Yi were all blazing and envious. Only Lin Yi himself was still indifferent. Feeling the gaze of Shanghai Tianhua above his head, Lin Yi raised his head and looked at him. He didn't speak, but the corner of his mouth slightly curved. No one knew what he was thinking at the moment. And Shanghai Tianhua, who was in the center of the audience, suddenly smiled after saying these 4 words. He actually got up and left, leaving a bunch of people in the audience puzzled. What did this mean? After saying that Lin Yi was not bad, he directly left. Did this mean that he wanted to accept Lin Yi as a disciple, or just praise him? "Grandpa, are you going to accept him or not?" Shanghai Laner was also anxious, so she quickly caught up and asked. "Lan if Grandpa takes Lin Yi in, then he'll be older than you in terms of seniority. Do you agree?" Shanghai Tianhua smiled playfully as he walked. "Ah." Shanghai Laner suddenly choked. She didn't want to have a seniority with Lin Yi for no reason. This was not only embarrassing on the surface, but it would also cause trouble in some matters. "Hee, so of course I won't accept him," Shanghai Tianhua said with a smile. "Then, Grandpa, why did you mention little junior brother's name?" Shanghai Laner asked with a puzzled look. "Lin Yi is not a person in a pond. Unless he is a real master, otherwise, letting anyone be his master will only restrict his growth. The disadvantages are greater than the advantages. It is better to let him develop on his own." Shanghai Tianhua said seriously, "I don't want to restrict him. The reason why I said this just now is to prevent others from accepting Lin Yi as a disciple. With Shanghai Tianhua's realm and vision, no matter who it was, he could almost see the potential and future of almost anyone at a glance. However, not only could he not see through Lin Yi, but he also could not see through him. If he were to use a saying, Shanghai Tianhua only knew that Lin Yi's future was the sea of stars. Any so-called teaching, in the end, would only become his restraint. If he were to find a case, it would be Ram Jie, who appeared out of nowhere in the past before Lin Yi. Shanghai Tianhua used the same strategy and finally created the unfathomable law enforcement hall master. Therefore, although he was called out by Shanghai Tianhua in public, and it was after the inner disciple competition, such a clear-cut occasion, Lin Yi could not be regarded as his disciple completely. He could only be regarded as half a disciple. After Shanghai Tianhua left, the audience was stunned and silent for a moment. Then they continued to select people, from the mysterious Pavilion Master, the Blue Cloud Pavilion Master, to the Elders Guild, according to the tacit status and strength ranking, one by one. In the end, the disciples who performed outstandingly in this inner disciple competition were accepted as registered disciples by the big shots. From then on, they rose to the sky in a single bound. However, it was worth mentioning that from the beginning to the end, all the big shots seemed to have forgotten Huang Xiaotao, and no one mentioned her. In terms of performance, Huang Xiaotao was remarkable in this inner disciple competition. In addition to Lin Yi and Su Lingchong, who were in the limelight, she left the deepest impression on everyone. In terms of potential, she was also a master of the gold core stage who had a perfect breakthrough. Her future was destined to be limitless. Chapter 42:10. Being able to reach their current level, the big bosses naturally weren't blind people. Normally speaking, after Lin Yi, there would have been big bosses who would have snatched this seedling with potential long ago, and it wouldn't have been like today where no one was interested in him. However, Lin Yi could figure out the reason. Huang Xiaotao was his partner, and she often sat with Shanghai Laner these days. They were like sisters, so she was naturally labeled as Shanghai Tianhua. No matter how much the big shots coveted her, they would not take the risk to snatch Shanghai Tianhua's people. At the end, all the big shots had taken turns. The remaining disciples in the gold core stage who had not been selected knew that there was no hope, so they had no choice but to leave. Lin Yi was also ready to return to the welcome pavilion, but suddenly a person behind him greeted him with a smile. Looking back, Lin Yi could not help but feel his eyelids twitch. The person behind him was dressed like a Taoist priest and had a sage-like demeanor. It was Yu Jinyang, the Pavilion Master of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Greetings, Pavilion Master. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, who was next to him, cupped their hands and saluted at the same time. After all, both of them were now inner disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. No need to be so polite. Yu Jinyang smiled and waved his hand, but he was unexpectedly approachable. He said with a smile, Lin Yi, I'm very happy that a genius like you can appear in Blue Cloud Pavilion, and so is Xiaotao. The future of the 3 pavilions in the North Island will fall on you in the future. There's a long way to go. Pavilion Master, you flatter me. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, who was a little reserved, looked at each other and quickly said modestly. The other disciples who passed by all looked envious. As the Pavilion Master of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Yu Jinyang was a top big shot at the same level as Shanghai Tianhua. Even inner disciples found it extremely difficult to see him. When had they ever seen this big shot take the initiative to greet others? This Lin Yi was simply favored by God, which made people envious. Although I have to be neither arrogant nor rash. But I'm telling the truth, you two don't have to be so modest. Yu Jinyang smiled nonchalantly, and then took the initiative to say, Lin Yi, since Pavilion Master Shangguan mentioned your name just now, do you want to transfer you to Soaring Sky Pavilion? That way it will be more justifiable in the future. Also, with me around, the procedures are very simple. Thank you for your understanding, Pavilion Master. However, I feel that staying in Blue Cloud Pavilion is fine. There's no need to go through so much trouble, Lin Yi rejected with a smile. He had more or less figured out what Shangguan Tianhua meant. Since he was only half a disciple, it did not matter much whether he went to the Soaring Sky Pavilion or not. Continuing to stay in the Blue Cloud Pavilion was not a bad idea. On the contrary, if he went to the Soaring Sky Pavilion, he might see Su Lingchong, Meng Tong, Yuzhe, and the rest of the assholes all day long. Not to mention the threat, the key point was that he would be annoyed whenever he saw them. These things would affect his mood, and that would be as depressing as he could be. Yu Jinyang heard this and was overjoyed. Anyone could see that Lin Yi had a bright future ahead of him. Although he was singled out by Shangguan Tianhua, he was still a genius. If he, as the Pavilion Master of Blue Cloud Pavilion, said that he didn't have any thoughts about being taken away from Soaring Sky Pavilion for no reason was a lie. If Lin Yi really wanted to go to Soaring Sky Pavilion, naturally he wouldn't be able to stop him. But since Lin Yi was willing to stay, it couldn't be any better. Blue Cloud Pavilion was already weak to a certain extent, and it wanted to rise again. Unless a legendary figure like Zhang Liju appeared. And from the looks of it, Lin Yi was no weaker than Zhang Liju from back then. He was no weaker than Zhang Liju from back then. Since you've made up your mind, I won't try to persuade you anymore. After all, Blue Cloud Pavilion is your home, and since we're on the same side, there's no need to be so formal. Tell me, is there anything you need my help with? Yu Xingyang said. With his status and identity, anything he wanted to do in the Clear Cloud Pavilion could be accomplished with a single word. This kind of favor that didn't cost much, he would naturally do it if he could. To be able to let Lin Yi owe him a favor, he couldn't ask for more. After all, in all these years, Lin Yi was the third person after Gong Yangjie to be praised by Shangguan Tianhua in all these years of intersect competitions. Shanghai Tianhua rarely praised someone in public, especially in a formal occasion like the inner disciple competition. There were only 3 times in history. The first time was Zhang Liju, the second was Ramjie, and the third was now Lin Yi. Zhang Liju, on the other hand, was a legendary being who stood at the peak of Sky Class Island. Gong Yangjie, on the other hand, was young but unfathomable as well. Not only was he the head of the law enforcement hall, but his reputation and position in the 3 pavilions was already above most of the elders. Perhaps in a few years he would be able to challenge the 3 pavilion masters. With such a living example, if Yu Xingyang still didn't recognize Lin Yi's potential, then he wouldn't be able to sit in his current position. Since the pavilion master has said so, then it would be impolite of me to refuse. Lin Yi didn't reject it excessively. He knew that making a request at a time like this not only wouldn't make people hate him, but it would also make their relationship closer. Since he had made up his mind to stay in Blue Cloud Pavilion in the future, it was necessary for him to have a good relationship with Yu Xingyang. Go ahead, just tell me if you have any requests. Yu Xingyang smiled as expected. And I hope to stay in Blue Cloud Pavilion in the future. I hope that the pavilion master can arrange a slightly bigger place for me, the kind that can accommodate a few more people. Lin Yi thought about it and said, Haha, with your strength and potential, Lin Yi, this is a matter of course. Even if you didn't mention it, the pavilion master wouldn't mistreat a talent like you. Yu Xingyang smiled and looked at Huang Xiaotao playfully. His meaning was obvious. Huang Xiaotao immediately lowered her head shyly. Even through the veil, the bystanders could feel her blush at this moment. Lin Yi smiled and didn't explain much. He told Yu Xingyang to arrange a bigger place for them to live. Naturally, Huang Xiaotao would have to move in with them. However, he didn't want to be with Huang Xiaotao for the rest of his life. In Lin Yi's expectation, not only would Huang Xiaotao move in, but the Tattered King would also be brought over. Although the Tattered King had yet to succeed in forging, he had helped Lin Yi for so long and was considered one of them. Moreover, he happened to be a disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion. It was just that he didn't have a good time before. Other than that, there would naturally be Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai and the others. If they gathered together, they could take care of each other. It would be more convenient for Lin Yi to help them improve their strength. Apart from this, do you have any other requests? Yu Xingyang continued to ask. No, thank you for your concern, Pavilion Master. Lin Yi replied. After all, it was the first time they met. Even if the request was to improve their relationship, it must be done in moderation. Otherwise, it would be insatiable and counterproductive. R466. Chapter 42:11. Yu Xingyang looked deeply at Lin Yi and seemed to be a little surprised. However, after waiting for a moment and seeing that Lin Yi had no intention of changing his mind, he nodded and said, Since that's the case, I'll get someone to prepare a residence first. We'll talk about the rest later. Thank you for your trouble, Pavilion Master. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao cupped their hands and watched Yu Xingyang leave. Not long after, the two also went their separate ways. Huang Xiaotao returned to the Blue Cloud Pavilion, and Lin Yi returned to the Welcoming Pavilion. Although Yu Xingyang, the Pavilion Master of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, personally came forward and the matter of residence could be settled with a few words, after all, it had to be arranged temporarily. So at least for tonight, Lin Yi still had to stay in the Welcoming Pavilion. Today, the 1-year period of the Welcoming Pavilion's newcomers had passed. The newcomers who were supposed to go to the 3 pavilions went to the 3 pavilions, those who were supposed to be stewards went to stewards, and those who were supposed to go to the mining area went to the mining area. Everyone had their own residence, and the newcomers' cave residences that were specially prepared for them were all empty. Only Lin Yi was an exception. Among all the newcomers' cave residences, only his cave residence was still occupied. But even so, not to mention the current steward of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Hu Yunfeng, even the welcoming pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, didn't dare to disrespect Lin Yi. When Lin Yi returned to the welcoming pavilion, he saw from afar that there was a person guarding the entrance of his cave residence. It was Hu Yunfeng. Junior Lin Yi, congratulations. After today you'll have a bright future ahead of you. To have a genius disciple like you is a rare honor for my welcome pavilion. Hu Yunfeng changed her usual attitude and walked up to Lin Yi as soon as she saw him, greeting him with a smile. Although he didn't like Lin Yi because of his position in the past, after learning of Lin Yi's performance in the Inner Disciple Tournament, especially after being praised by Shangguan Tianhua in public, he could only be said to be extremely stupid if he didn't quickly change his attitude. No matter what, he, Hu Yunfeng, could be considered an official. He definitely wouldn't be so blind. Pavilion Master Hu, you flatter me. Lin Yi was a little surprised, but then he smiled and said, Pavilion Master Hu, did you come to find me today to discuss the matter of the cave residence? Don't worry, I'll move out right away. I won't stay here forever. Junior brother Lin Yi, what are you saying? You're treating me like an outsider. Hu Yunfeng pretended to be angry and said, the welcoming pavilion is your first home on the Heaven Stage Island, and it's also your home forever. As long as you're willing to stay here, as long as I'm in the welcoming pavilion, I'll keep this cave for you forever. No one else is allowed to touch it. Hee, that won't be necessary. I've already talked to Pavilion Master Yu. The Blue Cloud Pavilion will probably arrange a new residence tomorrow. I won't trouble Pavilion Master Hu. Lin Yi smiled faintly and shook his head. Since Pavilion Master Yu is personally making an appearance, then he definitely won't treat junior brother Lin Yi unfairly. I'm relieved. Hu Yunfeng said with a smile, but he was shocked inwardly. Lin Yi had really become a phoenix after flying up the tree. Not only was he favored by Shangguan Tianhua, the Soaring Pavilion's pavilion master, but even Yu Jinyang, the Blue Cloud Pavilion's pavilion master, was so concerned about him. With the support of these two top-notch bosses, Lin Yi could really do whatever he wanted in the three pavilions in the future. One had to know that although Hu Yunfeng was also called Pavilion Master, it was only a small welcoming pavilion. In terms of status and power, it was much worse than any of the other departments, not to mention top-notch bosses like Shangguan Tianhua and Yu Jinyang. They were not on the same level at all. After asking about his well-being for a while, Hu Yunfeng politely said goodbye to Lin Yi. He deliberately came here today, not daring to have extravagant hopes of being able to get closer to Lin Yi. He only hoped that Lin Yi would not care about the past deliberately targeting him. That would already be a blessing. Looking at Hu Yunfeng's back as he left, Lin Yi shook his head with a smile. Previously, Hu Yunfeng was targeting him in every possible way. Now, because of Shangguan Tianhua's words, his attitude immediately changed 180 degrees. It really made people speechless. Not long after Hu Yunfeng left, several people came to the entrance of Lin Yi's cave, but this time they were all on the same side. It was the bitter senior brother Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, and Li Jingming. Junior brother Lin, we've heard about today's matter. It's really worth celebrating. We should toast. The bitter senior brother said happily. He now sincerely felt that Lin Yi was his destined benefactor. If it wasn't for Lin Yi, he would still be bullied by others. Perhaps he wouldn't even be able to keep his position as the second senior brother of the new manager. How could he live so comfortably today? This was all thanks to Lin Yi. Yes. Boss, from now on you will have a meteoric rise. We must celebrate. Let's not go home until we're drunk today. Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, and Li Jingming said in unison. The first two were underlings that Lin Yi had brought up. The latter was an insider who did his best for Lin Yi. They were Lin Yi's most trusted people. Now that Lin Yi had a meteoric rise, of course, they would share the glory with him. For tonight's celebration, the three of them spent a lot of effort to get several jars of top-quality spirit wine. Well, let's drink to our heart's content tonight. We won't go home until we're drunk. Lin Yi said with a smile. With his current strength, no matter how good the spirit wine was, he wouldn't get drunk even after 1,000 cups. However, Xiao Ran and the others were not necessarily so. They immediately laughed, filled their cups together and drank. During the year in the welcoming pavilion, they had experienced ups and downs together and cultivated a deep tacit understanding. Everything was understood without words. Junior brother Lin, let me toast you again. In the future, I will rely on you to protect me. The bitter senior brother raised his cup again. You're wrong, senior brother Ku. No matter what happens after I'm done with you, you'll always be my senior brother. We'll work together, there's no such thing as a cover. You should punish yourself with a cup first. Lin Yi smiled, speechless. Boss is right. Senior brother Ku needs to punish himself with a cup first. Qiao Hongkai took the lead to cheer. Okay, I accept the punishment. I accept the punishment. The bitter senior brother had to reply with a bitter smile. He raised his head and drank the cup. Lin Yi and the others clapped and cheered. However, although they said so, the bitter senior brother's words really reminded Lin Yi that everyone present was reliable. In the future he really had to spend more time on them. Their current strength was not bad in the welcoming pavilion, but if they went outside it was far from enough. They celebrated for a whole night. It was not until dawn of the next day that someone came to knock on the door. Finally ended. The person who came to knock on the door was an inner disciple in charge of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. According to the instructions of the pavilion master, Yu Jinyang, he was responsible for the accommodation of Lin Yi. When the bitter senior brother saw this person, he suddenly sighed with emotion. Although this person was not an influential figure like the inner disciple, he was at least an inner disciple with a lot of power. In the eyes of others he was also a superior existence. Now he was specially running errands for Lin Yi. If it was before, it would be unimaginable. R1152. Chapter 42:12. After greeting each other politely, the manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion immediately brought Lin Yi to his residence, and Ku Bai Shixiang and the others followed to join in the fun. Although they all had their own caves, Lin Yi wanted to reserve a room for them in his own residence so that they could live together as much as possible, so naturally they wanted to go and have a look. Since Yu Jinyang had personally invited them, Lin Yi and the others had already expected that this residence wouldn't be too bad, but when they actually arrived they were still shocked. Blue Cloud Pavilion's inner core, Mansion Number 1. Even if there were no rules on the surface, everyone knew that the ranking of the residence reflected the owner's status and strength to a certain extent. According to the unwritten rules, this mansion was usually reserved for the senior disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion's inner disciple, and no one else had this right. However, Lin Yi's predecessor was an exception. His name was Zhao Sanjin, and although his strength wasn't the strongest, he was the oldest among all the inner disciples in Clear Cloud Pavilion. Not only that, he had a good relationship with Clear Cloud Pavilion's eldest senior brother Jia Mufan, who was in charge of managing the inner sect. On top of that, Zhao Sanjin was a person who valued his reputation a lot. He had used all sorts of methods to convince Jia Mufan to give him the manor number 1. He didn't expect that he would be chased out with just one order from the top, and to give up his position to a mere inner disciple. How could he show his face now? However, Zhao Sanjin only complained a little, and after being told about Lin Yi's background, he didn't dare to say anything else. He didn't participate in the inner disciple competition this time, so he didn't know about it at first, but now that he knew that Lin Yi was a disciple chosen by Shanghai Tianhua, he had a high chance of becoming Ram Jia, or even a legendary existence like Zhang Liju. Who would dare mess with him? Although he, Zhao Sanjin, was very experienced, he only dared to show off in front of ordinary inner court disciples. He could only nod and bow in front of Jia Mufan, the eldest senior brother who managed the inner court, not to mention Shangguan Tianhua's hand-picked disciple. Zhao Sanjin had no choice but to pack up overnight, and quickly vacate Mansion Number 1. He also had people clean up the place thoroughly so that it wouldn't delay Lin Yi's move-in. After walking around, Lin Yi and the others praised the mansion from time to time. Mansion Number 1 was indeed the best residence in the inner disciples' core, with pavilions, waterside pavilions, fake rocks, and forests. What was even rarer was that because there were a lot of spiritual jades laid down, and there was a formation that could gather spiritual energy from the surroundings. No matter where they went, there was dense spiritual energy, and it was an eye-opener for Ku Bai Shixiang and the others. After the few of them strolled around excitedly, Senior Marshal Brother Ku Bai didn't stay for long because he still had some matters to take care of in the welcoming pavilion. Xiao Ran and the others also dispersed. Lin Yi sent them out of the door, and just when he was about to turn around, he suddenly heard a familiar voice behind him. What do you think? Are you satisfied with Mansion Number 1? Yu Jinyang appeared behind him and asked with a smile. Thank you, Pavilion Master. I'm very satisfied. Lin Yi nodded with a smile, but his heart skipped a beat. Although this Yu Jinyang was the weakest Clear Cloud Pavilion's pavilion lord, his strength was still unfathomable. Yu Jinyang had appeared behind him without Lin Yi noticing in the slightest. As expected of an expert. That's good. Other than that, Lin Yi, is there anything else you need my help with? Yu Jinyang asked with a meaningful look in his eyes. Lin Yi was speechless when he heard that. No matter what, the person in front of him was the pavilion master of Blue Cloud Pavilion, a top-notch big shot on the same level as Shanghai Tianhua. Wasn't it a little too polite to a newcomer in the inner disciple? He had asked the same question yesterday and he was asking it again today. Could it be that even if he was fine he still had to come up with something to ask for his help? Nothing else. Lin Yi was somewhat baffled as he replied. Yu Xingyang couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't seem to have any intention to continue asking, he coughed and took the initiative to mention, Lin Yi, you were in the Welcome Pavilion before, so you should be very familiar with the matters of the Welcome Pavilion. Ever since Liu Bianren stepped down, the position of the third pavilion master has been vacant for a long time. What do you think about this position? The reason why Yu Xingyang mentioned this matter was obviously because Shanghai Tianhua had hinted to him. He thought that Lin Yi would remember this matter, so he kept reminding him. He didn't expect that Lin Yi didn't have any intention in this regard, so he had no choice but to take the initiative to mention it. What he didn't know was that the matter of the third pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion was just a bet between Shanghai Tianhua and Shangguan Laner. Lin Yi didn't know about it at all, so he naturally wouldn't think about it in this regard. Third pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion? Lin Yi was suddenly surprised when he heard this, and he said strangely, You want me to go? Aren't I already an inner sect core disciple? Although he had just joined the inner sect, Lin Yi still had some understanding of this aspect. The inner sect core disciples were the future main force of the three pavilions, so their main task was to cultivate in seclusion or go out to train and improve their strength. In general, they would rarely do other miscellaneous things. Although the position of the third pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion was quite a high position, it was complicated. Under normal circumstances, it was a position reserved for outer sect disciples. Of course, only the most outstanding outer sect disciples had the opportunity, and ordinary people couldn't hope for it. This actually won't delay you, you just have to take up the position for a while. You can usually live here and if you have something to do you can go over. Yu Xingyang said with a smile. This? Lin Yi thought about it and finally refused. I appreciate the pavilion master's kindness, but I still don't want to take up this position. I want to concentrate on my cultivation now, and I don't want to be disturbed too much. Lin Yi, I am very pleased that you can be so ambitious, but the position of the third pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion can't be empty for too long. Otherwise, others will gossip about it and that won't be good. Yu Xingyang thoughtfully rubbed his chin and in his heart, he looked at Lin Yi even more highly. The third pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion was a position that everyone knew was gilded. Even many inner sect core disciples and even some inner sect stewards were envious of this position, but Lin Yi was able to remain unmoved. This kind of calmness and indifference was really rare. However, what made Yu Xingyang feel a little awkward was that this was a greeting from Shanghai Tianhua. If he didn't give the position of the third pavilion master to Lin Yi, wouldn't he be breaking his promise to Shanghai Tianhua? Pavilion master, although I don't want to take up the position myself, I have a suitable candidate for you to consider. Of course, it's just a suggestion. Lin Yi saw Yu Xingyang's dilemma and immediately said, Okay, tell me about it. Yu Xingyang nodded. If it was any other time, even if he wanted to discuss a candidate with someone, it would definitely not be a newcomer like Lin Yi. However, today's situation was special. To a certain extent, the position of the third pavilion master originally belonged to Lin Yi, so he naturally had the right to make suggestions. R1152. Chapter 42:13. I think that Ku Zhongla Liku's experience is more than enough for him to be the third master of the welcoming pavilion, Lin Yi said after some consideration. Bitter joy? Yu Xingyang frowned and thought for a moment before he remembered such a person. In fact, if he hadn't studied Lin Yi's background before, he wouldn't have known about bitter joy at all. After all, the difference in status between them was too great. Normally they wouldn't have any interaction at all. That's right. He is the current senior brother who is in charge of the newcomers. He has a lot of experience in the welcome pavilion and has always taken good care of me. I hope Pavilion Master can consider it, Lin Yi said on behalf of Bitter Joy. The words at the beginning were all foreshadowing. The last sentence was the main point. The implication was that this was a favor. Bitter Joy is indeed not bad, but his strength seems to be a little lacking, right? Yu Xingyang said hesitantly. As the Clear Cloud Pavilion's pavilion lord, although he had the authority to make the final decision on this matter, if he couldn't even fulfill the most basic conditions, then it would attract criticism from others. He's going to be a foundation establishment full circle very soon, and he's about to break through to this point. I know this, Lin Yi said confidently. In fact, Bitter Joy's current strength was only in the middle stage of the foundation building realm. Moreover, his talent was only considered average. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least a decade or even a few decades for him to break through to the foundation building great perfection. However, it was not a problem for Lin Yi to say so. After all, he could improve people's strength. If he really needed it, it would only take a few hours. Then there's no problem. Yu Xingyang immediately nodded and said, "However, I still have to inform Pavilion Master Shangguan about this. After all, this appointment has to go through the Elders Guild. It's not something that I can decide alone." "Alright, thank you, Pavilion Master," Lin Yi said with a smile. He also guessed that this was Shangguan Tianhua's intention. He believed that when the time came, Shangguan Tianhua would definitely not stop him when he heard that it was his suggestion. "Yes, but if that's the case, you'll have to pick another person to fill the position of the new senior brother steward." Yu Xingyang changed the topic. Normally, he would not pay attention to such a small position. Now that he said that, he was implying that the decision would be handed over to Lin Yi. He might as well be a good person to the end. "I think Xiao Ran is not bad. Why don't we choose him?" Lin Yi said. The reason why he didn't mention Xiao Hongkai and Li Jingming was that Xiao Hongkai was impulsive and wasn't suitable for this position. Li Jingming, on the other hand, wanted to keep a low profile because of his enemies, which was even more inappropriate. "Alright, Xiao Ran it will be then. It's settled then." Yu Xingyang nodded. He had no idea who Xiao Ran was. All he knew was that he was Lin Yi's man. "Thank you for your help, Pavilion Master," Lin Yi said gratefully. "Other than that, is there anything else?" Yu Xingyang asked again. Lin Yi was speechless for a while. He thought to himself that this Pavilion Master was really enthusiastic towards him. Suddenly he thought of Lu Bianren and said, "Pavilion Master, do you know where senior brother Lu Bianren went? He took good care of me before, but I haven't seen him for a long time." Lu Bianren? Yu Xingyang was stunned. He had an impression of this disciple. He said uncertainly, "Him? He should be out on a mission. I didn't pay much attention to him. I'll ask for you later and get someone to tell you." "Alright, then I'll have to trouble Pavilion Master. I'm very grateful." Lin Yi nodded. "Is there anything else?" Yu Xingyang continued to ask. "No." Lin Yi was completely embarrassed. No matter what, this was a top boss of the three great pavilions. It was really unexpected that he was so attentive to a newcomer in the inner sect. "Alright, if there's anything in the future you can look for me directly. I still have something to do today, so I won't stay here for long." Yu Xingyang turned and left. "Have a safe trip, Pavilion Master." Lin Yi bowed. He had to say that this time he really enjoyed the feeling of superiority. The other party was the Pavilion Master of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. It was an extravagant dream for an ordinary inner sect core disciple to even talk to him, not to mention that he would grant all of his requests. Lin Yi really didn't expect that a simple sentence from Shanghai Tianhua would have such a big effect. However, when he thought about it, he realized that Shangguan Tianhua had never said anything about Su Zhaohe in public. It had only been a rumor, and yet he was already so powerful that everyone feared and respected him. He was even able to send word to the disciplinary hall in secret, let alone Zhou Weiqing himself. If Shangguan Tianhua's words hadn't been said now, but earlier, Lin Yi believed that he wouldn't have any trouble in the welcoming pavilion at all. Even Su Lingchong and the others wouldn't dare mess with him anymore. Of course, this was just a casual thought. Lin Yi wouldn't regret this kind of thing at all, and he wouldn't complain about it because the current environment where no one dared to provoke was not suitable for his growth at that time. If from the beginning he was in a greenhouse cradle that stood aloof from worldly affairs, he probably wouldn't have such achievements now. But now, after seeing the scene of Su Lingchong being killed in seconds in the inner disciple competition, it was difficult for these clowns to pose any threat to Lin Yi. It was estimated that Shanghai Tianhua had also seen that after Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao joined forces, no one in the Gold Core realm could compete with them, so there was no need to let these clowns jump out and cause trouble. What Lin Yi needed now was more powerful experience. It was meaningless to continue to stay in the North Island. Next, he was bound to find an opportunity to go out of the North Island to do tasks. The preferential treatment given to him now was just to ensure that there would be no trouble in his backyard, and not to let these clowns drag him down. Somewhere in the North Island, in an underground secret room, Su Lingchong, who was dying, was lying on the bed. Meng Tong was guarding him nervously, and the mysterious man in black was also there. In addition, there was another person in the room, and it was Master Pao, who gave Su Lingchong the Chrysanthemum treasure book last time. "Master Pao, I failed to live up to your cultivation." Su Lingchong let Meng Tong help him stand up and apologized to Master Pao with difficulty. At this moment, although he was dying, his face was ruddy, which made Meng Tong secretly feel bad. This was a sign of the last radiance of the setting sun. Master Pao heard this, came over to check him up and down, and concluded, although the injury is very serious, it's not completely incurable. You were beaten up by Lin Yi like this, in fact it's not unjust at all. Master Pao, you mean, I can still be saved? Su Lingchong suddenly became spirited. Yes. Master Pao nodded and then said, wait, we'll talk about it when Dr. Luan comes. Chapter 42:14. After a while, the mysterious woman pushed the door open and said to everyone, he stays, all of you go out. Master Pao and the man in black nodded and immediately went out. Meng Tong's status was the lowest. Although he was worried about Su Lingchong's injury, he did not dare to disobey the mysterious woman's order and could only follow her out of the room. The three of them waited outside. No one knew what the mysterious woman was going to do, and no one knew what was going on in the room at the moment. After a full hour, the mysterious woman pushed the door open and came out. How is he? The man in black asked quickly. Su Lingchong was his valued deputy. If he was trained well, he would be able to shoulder great responsibilities in the future. If he died like this, it would be a great loss. Master Pao also showed a concerned expression. After all, Su Lingchong was also his disciple. As for Meng Tong, he was no exception. I have injected him with the Fire Wolf War God gene. Although it is not perfect, at least it can ensure that he will not die. Not only that, but he will also become stronger than before. The mysterious woman said lightly. Fire Wolf War God? What is that? Meng Tong could not help but exclaim when he heard this. However, when he saw the cold eyes of the man in black and Master Pao, he immediately knew that he had misspoken. With his status, he was not qualified to know these things. Nothing, it's just a combination of a spirit beast and a human cultivator. The mysterious woman did not blame him and continued, in fact, the best modified body of the Fire Wolf War God is still in the secular world, not on Heaven Stage Island. It's just that living people can't be teleported here for the time being. We can only test it on Su Lingchong first. From the current results, it should be good. But we have to continue to observe for a while. Although Meng Tong did not understand and felt that it was amazing, he was relieved as long as Su Lingchong was fine. Su Lingchong suddenly disappeared again, and even Meng Tong strangely disappeared with him. This matter once again caused a stir in the three pavilions of the North Island. Many people speculated that they went out to find someone to treat them, but unfortunately, even Su Yuanjing did not know about it. There was an uproar outside and Su Yuanjing himself was very anxious. However, during this period of time, although Su Lingchong had never told him the specific situation as a big shot of the Elders Guild, he was definitely a shrewd person. There were some things that even if Su Lingchong did not say, he was also able to deduce some inside information through some of the daily clues and clues. He speculated that Su Lingchong and Meng Tong must have gone to some mysterious place to receive treatment for Su Lingchong's sudden disappearance this time. Their sudden increase in strength should also be related to this. Therefore, even if he was worried and anxious, Su Yuanjing deliberately suppressed this matter and did not let it continue to blow up. Otherwise, if he was found to have some unspeakable secret on his grandson, it would be too late for regrets. Since his grandfather, Su Yuanjing, said it was fine. The other higher-ups of the three great pavilions naturally wouldn't make a fuss about it, and the law enforcement hall didn't care about it at all. After all, the rumors in the streets were just pure speculation. There was no official confirmation. After a period of time, naturally they would cease all activities. Time passed in the blink of an eye, and Lin Yi moved into the number 1 mansion of the Inner Sect Corps. This marked that he had officially become an Inner Sect disciple. Now several days had passed. There was the halo of Shangguan Tianhua, the pavilion master of Soaring Sky Pavilion, above it. Even the Clear Cloud Pavilion's pavilion Lord Yu Jinyang agreed to all of Huang Xiaolong's requests. Even if others were envious of him, at most they would only grumble in private, not daring to find trouble with Huang Xiaolong. As for the original people of Su Lingchong's faction, they were even more afraid to jump in front of Lin Yi. Even Su Lingchong, who was at the peak of his power, was killed in one move, not to mention them, his little brothers. Even if they wanted to die, they wouldn't do it in such a way. In this way, Lin Yi could cultivate in peace, and Huang Xiaotao followed him and also moved into the number 1 mansion. This really made this well-behaved girl secretly happy for a long time. Even if they were not in the same room, they were under the same roof, in a sense, which meant that her relationship with Lin Yi had become closer. In addition to cultivating separately every day, the two would occasionally practice the frenzied fire 8 trigrams palm strike together. After all, this was the strongest move they could master at the moment besides the pill fire bomb, and it was also a powerful trump card to deal with the enemy in the future. In addition to Huang Xiaotao, Shanghai Laner would also come over every day. Looking at the 3 major pavilions, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were already her closest friends. If it was not for her strict upbringing, this girl even had the intention to move over and live with them, but Shanghai Tianhua was unwilling to agree. In addition, although senior brother Ku Bai, Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, and Li Jingming had not completely moved over, they would come over every few days to meet up. It was worth mentioning that Lin Yi took advantage of these few days to raise the strength of everyone to the great circle of foundation establishment. The reason why he did this was, of course, for the matter that he had discussed with Yu Jinyang some time ago. If senior brother Ku Bai's strength did not reach the great circle of foundation establishment, even if the higher-ups agreed, he would not be able to sit in the position of the 3rd pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion. Since senior brother Ku Bai had already been promoted, the other Xiao Ran and the others as well as Lin Yi, would naturally not be left behind. As long as they could keep it a secret, strong strength could not only protect them, but if Lin Yi had something to ask them to do in the future, it would also be more convenient, and they would not become a burden. In addition, there was another important reason why Lin Yi dared to promote everyone's strength. After this period of personal verification by Huang Xiaotao, one thing was already very clear. The promotion of strength was also the same, but it was not the same as in the secular world. In the secular world, because the spirit chi was extremely thin, those who had been promoted by Lin Yi's promotion could not be promoted by themselves. Even if they worked hard to cultivate, it would be useless. But now, because the spirit chi on Heaven Stage Island was abundant, especially in the number 1 mansion where Lin Yi was located, the spirit chi concentration was hundreds of times higher than in the outside world. It was completely possible to cultivate normally, without the slightest influence, and there were no side effects, so Lin Yi could rest assured and boldly promote everyone's strength. Otherwise, except for senior brother Ku Bai, Lin Yi would not promote Xiao Ran and the others. It was not because of selfishness, but because they were different from senior brother Ku Bai. The 3 of them were far more talented than ordinary people. As long as the cultivation resources were in place, it was not difficult for them to break through and upgrade. As long as they let nature take its course, their strength foundation would be better and stronger, so there was no need for Lin Yi to spoil things through excessive enthusiasm. Chapter 42:15. However, now that he knew that there would be no side effects, there was no need to worry about this problem. After all, no matter what, it was not a bad thing to be strong. As for the foundation with the qualifications of Xiao Ran and the others, they could completely make up for it by themselves. There would be no hidden dangers. However, what Lin Yi did not expect was that Shanghai Laner would come to the number 1 mansion every day and watch the situation of these people improving their strength from beginning to end. This girl had always disliked cultivation. Seeing such a great thing that could easily improve her strength, she naturally could not help but want to try it. In fact, the fact that Lin Yi could improve the strength of others was already known to Shanghai Laner when Huang Xiaotao's strength skyrocketed. However, at that time she also wanted to become a master of the gold core stage, and Lin Yi did not have something like the myriad golden dan fruit, so there was no way to achieve it in one step. In any case, Shanghai Laner was absolutely reliable. Since she made a request again, even if Lin Yi was in a dilemma, he could not ignore it. Last time, in addition to not having the myriad golden dan fruit, there was no way to achieve it in one step. Another worry was that he was afraid of being suspected by Shanghai Tianhua. However, now that he thought about it carefully, although he did not have much contact with Shanghai Tianhua, the other party had always been helping him. Even if he guessed something through the changes in Shanghai Laner, it was unlikely that he would harm him. After thinking about this, Lin Yi immediately stopped declining and nodded in agreement. Senior sister, it's not impossible to improve your strength, but you have to take off your clothes in the process. Take off my clothes? Shengguan Lan was dumbfounded. She opened her mouth in disbelief and said, "What do you mean?" Shanghai Laner looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. Without waiting for Lin Yi to answer, she immediately turned to look at Huang Xiaotao. She asked, "Senior sister Xiaotao, you also take off your clothes?" "Yes, I have to take off my clothes." Huang Xiaotao nodded. "Really?" Shengguan Laner still didn't believe it. She was stunned for a long time, and then said to Lin Yi thoughtfully, "Do I have to become your woman to share this secret?" "Sure. Little junior brother, if you want senior sister, just say it directly. How dare you find an excuse to threaten me? You're so bad." This really isn't an excuse. It's supposed to be like this. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. Then we'll do as you say. Ku Zhongla, Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai and Li Jingming. Do the four of them also have to take off their clothes? Shangguan Laner rolled her eyes and asked. Yes, they have to take them off as well. Huang Xiaotao answered on his behalf. Shangguan Laner suddenly spurted. When she thought of the scene of several big men sitting together naked, she couldn't help but shudder. With a shocked expression as if her outlook on life had collapsed, she said, Little junior brother. Your taste is a bit wrong. This won't do. Don't tell me that you saw Su Lingchong and Meng Tong being so affectionate together, so you suddenly had a whim and wanted to have a taste? Listen to little senior sister's advice. You can't do that. Shangguan Laner's shocked and exaggerated expression made Lin Yi laugh on the spot. He knew that Shanghai Laner was silly and cute. Who knew that this girl actually had such a funny attribute? He immediately laughed until he couldn't catch his breath and held his stomach. Huang Xiaotao was standing at the side. At this time he was laughing so hard that he couldn't stand straight. He pointed at Shangguan Lan and couldn't say a word for a long time. As for the senior brothers who were suffering, they didn't dare to laugh out loud, but their bodies were shaking. People who didn't know would think they were having a collective cramp. This was also because the little curly bear was playing alone in the courtyard outside. If such a clown who wielded a pair of scissors was added to the mix, when the time came, one person and one pet would be amused. They could probably go and act in a comedy. What are you laughing at? Don't you think this matter is very serious? Shanghai Laner still didn't realize it and continued to scold Lin Yi with her hands on her hips. Senior sister, I think very highly of you. Little junior brother, don't learn bad things. Su Lingchong and Meng Tong, those annoying people, are now being privately ridiculed by many people. Only his grandfather is still kept in the dark. How pitiful. Oh, that's not right. His grandfather might have also noticed it, but he didn't dare to face the truth, so he could only pretend to be deaf and mute. Listening to this girl's words getting more and more off topic, Lin Yi finally forced himself to hold back his laughter. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he explained to her, Little senior sister, you're really thinking too much about this. The reason why we have to take off our clothes is because in the process of increasing our strength, the true chi will skyrocket too much. You guys can't control it at all. Even if you wear clothes, it will explode. So it's better not to wear them. There's really no other meaning. Oh, so that's how it is. So I'm really thinking too much? Shanghai Laner stuck out her tongue embarrassedly. Then she patted her small chest and rejoiced. Fortunately, little junior brother, you're still normal. You almost scared me to death just now. We're the ones who are going to laugh to death? Lin Yi, Huang Xiaotao and the others couldn't help but laugh. Hee, all right. I've already admitted that I'm thinking too much. Shanghai Laner blushed and quickly changed the topic. Little junior brother, don't laugh anymore. Hurry up and help me increase my strength. Little senior sister, this is not a small matter. Have you really thought it through? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. This kind of matter was a big matter for any girl. Even a naive girl like Shanghai Laner would have to think about it for a while. Of course I've thought it through. I'm very serious. Shanghai Laner wrinkled her nose cutely, with a bold and unrestrained expression on her face. All right. Lin Yi shrugged. Since Shanghai Laner had already said so, it would be inappropriate for a man like him to be shy. Senior brother Bitter, Xiao Ran, and the others immediately greeted each other and dispersed. Lin Yi took Shanghai Laner into the inner room for cultivation, and Huang Xiaotao followed them with a smile. As soon as the door of the inner room was closed, Lin Yi adjusted his state a little, then turned to Shanghai Laner and said, Little senior sister, are you ready? Let's start now. So soon? Shanghai Laner, who originally had a forthright expression, began to be shy when it was time to take off her clothes. She blushed and said to Lin Yi, Little junior brother, then, turn around first. Okay. Lin Yi immediately turned around cooperatively. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. She pretended to be forthright just now, but now she can't hide it anymore. After waiting for a while, he heard rustling behind him and then there was no more movement. Lin Yi asked, Are you ready? Chapter 42:16. Well, just a little bit more. Shanghai Laner replied hesitantly. Just a little bit more? Lin Yi was slightly stunned, and then he heard Huang Xiaotao, who was beside him, couldn't help but laugh and say, What do you mean just a little bit more? You've clearly only taken off a shawl, and you haven't even untied the belt. Lin Yi was speechless. He thought that although this girl usually looked cheerful and carefree, after all, her upbringing was still there. In this kind of matter, compared to a shy girl like Huang Xiaotao, she was even more restrained. Who said that there was only a shawl? Sister Xiaotao is lying. I've clearly untied the belt halfway. Shanghai Laner argued behind him with a red face. Okay, but Lanera, you'd better hurry up. It's getting late now. If you delay any longer, it will be dark. At that time, if Pavilion Master Shangguan is worried about you and comes to find you personally, won't you be in trouble? Huang Xiaotao reminded her with a smile covering her mouth. Shanghai Laner couldn't help but shiver. This kind of thing was really not impossible. Shanghai Tianhua had repeatedly warned her not to spend the night at Lin Yi's place. Immediately, she didn't dare to continue to dawdle. She clenched her teeth and plucked up her courage. She braced herself and quickly stripped herself clean. Okay, done? Shanghai Laner said with a trembling voice. She covered the important parts of her body with her hands while carefully and slowly walking behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi heard the voice and turned his head. He saw a shy and naked Shanghai Laner. Even though he had so many stunning beauties, he couldn't help but be completely stunned. Each of the beauties had their own merits and all of them were the best in the world. But this Shanghai Laner, if he had to find a word to describe her, then it could only be a green lotus. Lin Yi had known Shangguan Laner for a long time. He also knew that this girl was unparalleled in beauty. However, she had always been carefree, which made Lin Yi subconsciously ignore this point. Now he suddenly saw this scene. It would be strange if he wasn't stunned. In fact, not to mention Lin Yi, even Huang Xiaotao, who was next to him, couldn't help but feel a sense of pity when she saw the flawless Shangguan Laner, especially the temptation that came from her natural naivety. It simply made people restless and unable to shift their eyes away. Can we start now? Shangguan Laner said weakly with a blushing face. Being stared at by Lin Yi like this, her heart was not only bashful, but also strangely excited. Okay. Lin Yi swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He forcibly moved his eyes away from Shangguan Laner, took a deep breath to stabilize his mind, and then began to improve her strength. 2 hours later, Shangguan Laner's strength successfully reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Even when Lin Yi withdrew his hands from her wrists, she was still blushing shyly and did not dare to raise her head to look at him. At this moment, because of the true qi baptism, Shangguan Laner's whole body was covered with fine beads of sweat. It made the originally smooth and seductive scene even more irresistible. Even Lin Yi, who had always been extremely determined, couldn't control himself at this moment. If it weren't for Huang Xiaotao's presence, it was not impossible for him to eat Shangguan Laner, who was currently trying to resist just like this. Is it done? Shangguan Laner's long eyelashes trembled, and she shyly opened her eyes. It's done. Little senior sister, put on your clothes. Lin Yi forced himself to calm down. He reluctantly withdrew his gaze from her body. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be dark outside at this time. If this little girl did not hurry back, maybe the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Shanghai Tianhua, would really come to visit. That would not only be an honor, but if he knew about what happened today, there might be a storm. After all, this was his only precious granddaughter. Oh, Shangguan Laner obediently responded, and her heart could not help but feel relieved, but it was also accompanied by a trace of inexplicable loss. Why did she have this feeling? Even she could not understand. Huang Xiaotao had already carefully prepared hot water and a towel. After wiping Shangguan Laner's body, she helped her put on her clothes, and Lin Yi reminded her, little senior sister, you must keep today's matter a secret, even if it's your grandfather. I know, senior sister's mouth is very tight, little junior brother, you can rest assured. As soon as she put on her clothes, Shangguan Laner immediately regained her spirit, which really made Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao laugh. When she said goodbye to Lin Yi and returned to Soaring Sky Pavilion's Hualan residence with the little curly bear, the sky was already completely dark, and Shanghai Tianhua was practicing calligraphy in the study while waiting for her to return home. As expected, as soon as he took a look at his precious granddaughter, Shangguan Tianhua, this super big shot who never moved no matter what, was startled. Little Lan, what's the matter with you? Shanghai Tianhua did not even bother to write, and quickly put down the brush, looked up and down at Shanghai Laner, and asked nervously, I just came back from little junior brother's place and I didn't spend the night at his place. Grandpa, why are you so nervous? Shanghai Laner blinked and said. She had wanted to live with Huang Xiaotao, but unfortunately Shanghai Tianhua did not allow it, so she could only give up. Grandpa is not talking about this. Shanghai Tianhua could not help but be choked by his cute granddaughter, and said with a wry smile, I'm talking about your strength, How did it suddenly soar to the great perfection of the Foundation Establishment realm? Oh, I ate a lot of Foundation Establishment pills at little junior brother's place, so my strength naturally improved, hee hee. Shanghai Lena rolled her eyes and said, "You ate Foundation Establishment pills?" Shanghai Tianhua was suddenly speechless and shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. This precious granddaughter was deceiving him like a child. Just eating some Foundation Establishment pills, and she could directly go from the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm to the great perfection of the Foundation Establishment realm. If Foundation Establishment pills were so easy to get, wouldn't so many cultivators in seclusion in the world go crazy? Yes, little junior brother is a master of alchemy, he can refine a lot. Shanghai Laner still felt that her lie was very good, and while sticking out her tongue cutely, she continued to lie. Alright then. However, little Lan you still need to work hard on your cultivation and build up your foundation. Otherwise you'll just have a high cultivation level but no actual power. Shangguan Tianhua nodded helplessly. Although he was very confused, he did not intend to get to the bottom of it. He believed that Lin Yi would not harm his granddaughter, not to mention that in this moment, he had already checked Shanghai Laner up and down without a trace. Except for the improvement of strength, there was nothing unusual, so he was finally relieved. R466. Chapter 42:17. Oh, I know. Shangguan Lan thought that she'd gotten away with it, and her face was filled with excitement. She didn't know that Shangguan Tianhua had only turned a blind eye because he trusted Lin Yi. While Shanghai Laner was busy fooling her grandfather, the pavilion master of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Yu Jinyang, once again arrived at Lin Yi's inner gate number 1 mansion and gently touched the restriction outside the door. "Greetings, pavilion master." Lin Yi hurriedly came out to welcome him. He knew that with the strength of this pavilion master, it would be a piece of cake if he wanted to sneak past the seal and enter without a sound. The pavilion master was just being polite, which was why he had lowered himself to wait outside the door. No need to be so courteous. The appointments have been made. Ku Zhongla will be promoted to 3rd Pavilion Master of Welcome Pavilion and Xiao Ran will be promoted to Senior Brother Supervisor of Blue Cloud Pavilion. This news will be officially announced tomorrow, Yu Jinyang said with a smile. That's great. Thank you, Pavilion Master. Lin Yi was overjoyed. These 2 positions were rare positions for Ku Zhongla and Xiao Ran. As long as they developed normally, they would have a bright future. Haha, that's what I should do. There's one more thing. There's news from Lu Bianren. Yu Jinyang smiled, and then his expression became a little serious. He did go on a mission during this time. The mission location is in the Wayark Sea area near the South Island. However, the people who went with him to perform the mission have all returned. Only he has no news. Pavilion Master, do you mean that Senior Brother Lu is the only one who left the team? Lin Yi's heart suddenly tightened. His intuition told him that something might have happened to Lu Bianren. That's right. Those who returned don't know his whereabouts or where he went. They only said that they parted ways in the middle of the mission. Yu Jinyang nodded. Parted ways in the middle of the mission? What? Lin Yi frowned slightly and then asked, Pavilion Master, do you know what mission Senior Brother Lu went on this time? The mission itself isn't important, Lin Yi. I can tell you with certainty that the reason why Lu Bianren separated from the others was to find Deputy Pavilion Master Yao, Yu Jinyang concluded. Vice Pavilion Master Yao? Lin Yi was stunned again. Although he had a good relationship with Lu Bianren, he had never mentioned Deputy Pavilion Master Yao to him. Even Senior Brother Ku Bai was a bitter person. He had never talked about it. That's right. I don't treat you as an outsider, so I won't beat around the bush. This Deputy Pavilion Master Yao has always been Lu Bianren's greatest backer. Yu Jinyang directly admitted, a few years ago. Deputy Pavilion Master Yao had led a team out on a mission, and after that there had been no news from them. Not a single one of them had returned. The last place they had received news from was in the Rose Arc territorial waters. Therefore, Lu Bianren had specially gone there this time to find Deputy Pavilion Master Yao. The mission was just a cover. Once we get there, we'll naturally be separated from the main group. I see. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. He had heard Senior Brother Ku Bai mention this before, but at that time he only said that their backer had gone out on a mission. He hadn't been back for a few years, so he didn't say it in such detail. From the looks of it, Lu Bianren had most likely gone to find someone. He was previously the 3rd Pavilion Master of Welcome Pavilion. Although he was ostracized, he still held an important position and couldn't go out on a mission. After stepping down from his position, he became the second senior brother of Blue Cloud Pavilion's outer sanctum steward. Even though his position had only risen and not fallen, there were many fewer restrictions. But even if they were separated at the beginning after the mission ended, those people didn't wait for senior brother Lu and directly returned on their own? Isn't that a little unreasonable? Linny asked. On the surface he will definitely wait for a while, but this is just for show. In fact, although Lu Bianren is considered a genius disciple, and his life has always been smooth sailing, but because of his personality, after Deputy Pavilion Master Yao disappeared, his life has not been as smooth as it should be. Yu Xingyang sighed slightly. Unlike senior brother Ku Bai, who had average aptitude, Lu Bianren had shown brilliantly for a period of time in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, which had always lacked talents. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left an impression in the Pavilion Master's heart. Unfortunately, due to the disappearance of Deputy Pavilion Master Yao, Lu Bianren was like an eagle that had lost its wings. Since then he had become a nobody. When senior brother Lu was in the Welcome Pavilion, I know that, but wasn't he promoted to be the second senior brother of Blue Cloud Pavilion's outer sanctum steward? Linny couldn't help but feel strange. In terms of position, it is indeed a promotion. But first, he doesn't have a backer, and second, he isn't slick and shrewd enough. He can't actually sit firmly in his position as the second senior brother of outer sanctum steward. As far as I know, after he took office he didn't have any substantial power. He was directly taken over by the eldest senior brother of outer sanctum steward. Yu Xingyang said with slight regret. Is that so? Before Lu Bianren took office, Linny had already warned him to pay attention to this situation, so he didn't look surprised. Instead he said, but this kind of situation where one sect is dominant is not a good thing for the long-term development of Blue Cloud Pavilion, right? Don't tell me the higher-ups don't interfere at all and don't ask about it at all. Although that's what you said, the higher-ups don't interfere with the competition between the disciples. This has long been an unspoken rule. No one will break this rule rashly. After all, this is also a reflection of one's ability. Yu Xingyang shook his head and said, Disciple understands. Thank you, Pavilion Master, for telling me. Lin Yi didn't dwell on this matter and immediately nodded to express his gratitude. It's nothing. It's a small matter. Yu Xingyang smiled. After sending Yu Xingyang off, Lin Yi immediately went to the Welcome Pavilion to find senior brother Ku Bai and told him about this matter. After all, senior brother Ku Bai was closer to Lu Bianren than Lu Bianren. Alas, first it was Deputy Pavilion Master Yao, and now it's senior brother Lu. But I can't help it all. What should I do? Senior brother Ku Bai couldn't help but sigh deeply after hearing this. There's no other way. Now we can only wait and see. I hope that they are lucky. Linny also said helplessly. Although he knew the cause, there was still no news. Even if he wanted to help, it was useless. At the end of the day, it's all my fault for being too useless. If I was a little stronger, I could have gone with senior brother Lu. That way we could have taken care of each other. It's better than standing on the sidelines like this. Sigh. The bitter senior brother blamed himself. Senior brother Ku Bai, you don't have to blame yourself so much. Although I haven't seen Deputy Pavilion Master Yao, I know senior brother Lu. He is not an ordinary person. It's not that easy for him to get into an accident. Maybe there are other hidden reasons. Linny comforted him and then changed the topic. By the way, in addition to this matter, there's another good news to tell you. The position of third Pavilion Master of the Welcome Pavilion has been confirmed to fall on your head. Be mentally prepared tomorrow. Chapter 42:18. Really? The bitter senior brother was taken aback, and his entire body froze on the spot. This was something he had never dared to dream of. Being able to sit on the position of Clear Cloud Pavilion's eldest senior brother in charge of the newcomer recruitment hall, he was already very satisfied. When had he ever dreamed of becoming the third Pavilion Lord of the Welcoming Pavilion? This was a publicly recognized gold-plated position. Only the most outstanding genius disciples had the opportunity to get their hands on it. Pavilion Master, you said it himself. Senior brother Ku, do you think it's true? Otherwise, why do you think I suddenly raised your strength a few days ago? Wasn't it to prepare for this? Linny said with a chuckle. Junior brother Lin. What do you want me to say? The bitter senior brother was so excited that he couldn't speak coherently. He held Lin Yi's arm tightly with both hands and stammered. He couldn't say a proper sentence for a long time. If he hadn't known Lin Yi, Deputy Pavilion Leader Yao and Lu Bianren had disappeared one after the other. If he hadn't known Lin Yi, his current situation would have been so miserable that he wouldn't even be able to see the light of day. How could such a huge pie fall into his lap? All of this was thanks to Lin Yi. What's there to talk about? If we don't take care of our own people, are we going to let outsiders take care of it? Lin Yi patted his senior brother's shoulder and smiled faintly, not minding it. That's true, but... Senior Marshal Brother Ku Bai was still so grateful that he couldn't speak. No, but Senior Brother Ku, just do your best. I don't think I'll be staying in the North Island Pavilion often in the future. When that time comes, Xiao Ran and the others will have to rely on you to take care of them. Don't let them get bullied, Lin Yi interrupted. Yes, I know. Even if Junior Brother Lin didn't say it, I would still do it. Senior Brother Ku Bai nodded heavily. That's it then. Prepare well tonight and wait for tomorrow's grand inauguration. Lin Yi laughed. He didn't stay too long in the welcoming pavilion and turned around to leave. The next day, the news of Ku Zhongla becoming the new third pavilion master of Welcoming Pavilion quickly spread throughout the three major pavilions. Especially in Blue Cloud Pavilion, everyone was talking about it. The position of the third pavilion master of the Welcoming Pavilion had been vacant for so long. This was a big piece of meat and many powerful people had their eyes on it. Who would have thought that it would fall into the hands of such an unknown person like Ku Zhongla? This was simply shocking. However, when they heard that Ku Zhongla was Lin Yi's loyal follower, they were no longer surprised. With Lin Yi's current position in the three great pavilions, he was like the sun in the sky. It wasn't strange for him to help Ku Zhongla operate such a position. At the same time, Xiao Ran took over Ku Zhongla's original position and became the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomer manager eldest senior brother. This did not attract too much attention. After all, it was only a small matter, and it was far from the glory of the position of third pavilion master. However, on the same day the three major pavilions had another piece of extremely attention-grabbing news. Su Lingchong, who was previously defeated by Lin Yi in one move and disappeared, finally returned. Perhaps it was because he had lost too much face in the previous competition, but young Master Su's return this time was not as high profile as last time, even though he had already recovered from his injuries. He almost quietly returned to the Soaring Sky Pavilion, and after that, he did not cause any commotion. Originally, the second senior brother of the inner sect of the Chongtian Pavilion was determined to get the job. But now he didn't have any hope. After all, even if his strength was not bad, he had already become Lin Yi's stepping stone. Even if he had Su Yuanjing, his grandfather, running around for him, it was impossible to win the second senior brother, the inner disciple manager. Moreover, even if he could win it, it would not convince the public. It was rare for Su Lingchong to be so low-key. After Lin Yi learned of the news, he did not bother to take the initiative to find fault with him. He continued to live a peaceful and leisurely life in the #1 mansion of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. 2 days later, as the new official disciples of the three major pavilions had gradually adapted to the new environment and rhythm, the three major pavilions finally released the official disciple tasks for the new year. There were two main tasks. One was the weapon task, which required every new official disciple, including the core disciples of the inner disciple like Lin Yi, to find a way to build a suitable weapon. According to the tradition of the three major pavilions, there would be a weapon competition in the middle of the year. All disciples could sign up for it. Of course, if one did not have a weapon, he would naturally not be eligible. In addition to the weapon task, the other was the trial task. Every official disciple of the three major pavilions could accept this task. As long as they completed the task, they could get the corresponding guild points. These points could be accumulated and exchanged for the corresponding rewards at the Cultivators Guild in the North Island. In principle, these tasks were voluntary, but the three major pavilions set a bottom line, that was, every official disciple, including the core disciples of the inner disciple, must complete more than 2 trial tasks every year. This was only the most basic training requirement, and there was no room for laziness. Even a young master like Su Lingchong with a strong background as an inner core disciple, had to do the task if he wanted to get along well. No one else could do it for him. Of course, with Su Yuanzheng as his grandfather, he would not lack cultivation resources no matter what. But how could an ambitious person like him be willing to just dawdle around and be an ordinary disciple? Even if he could not compete for the position of the second senior brother in charge of the inner disciple because of the tragic ending of the inner disciple competition this time, it was only a temporary thing. In the future he would definitely be promoted. In order to avoid being criticized by others, he had to perform as well as possible from the beginning of these basic tasks. Of course, if it was a second-generation cultivator without the slightest ambition, it would be a different story. Take Shanghai Laner for example, this girl was not in the mood to cultivate at all. As for the trial task, it was purely for her own pleasure. Even if she did not go, no one would say anything about her. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were naturally going to do the task. The two of them went to the task list specially set up by the three major pavilions and scanned it up and down. There were hundreds of trial tasks of various sizes on it. There were individual tasks with low difficulty, and there were also group tasks with high difficulty. It was only possible to complete them with the cooperation of many people. But one thing was certain, whether it was individual tasks or group tasks, they were all transferred from the Cultivators Guild in the North Island. Therefore, some of the long-term tasks were quite familiar. At this time, there was already a sea of people in front of the task list. There were many disciples of the three major pavilions gathered. R1152. Chapter 42:19. Looking around, many of them were inner core disciples that he had seen in the inner core competition before. Of course, most of them were outer disciples. Lin Yi also saw some old acquaintances of the Welcome Pavilion in the crowd, such as Dongfang Badeo and Murong Zhen. When these people saw Lin Yi, they couldn't help but reveal expressions of reverence. Wherever Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao passed, everyone consciously moved away, not daring to offend them in the slightest. Today was different from the past. In the past, no matter how much Lin Yi was in the limelight, it was still in the category of the newcomers of the Welcome Pavilion. They could be envious, they could talk about it, and they could sneer at him if they were not pleasing to the eye. But now it was different. Because of the words of Shanghai Tianhua, Lin Yi and they were now in two different worlds. Facing Lin Yi was like facing Ram Jie, who had appeared out of nowhere. They only dared to look up to him but did not dare to have any disrespect. None of them were fools. They knew that in the face of a true and absolute gap, any self-righteous thoughts were foolish thoughts that would only bring disaster to themselves and wouldn't bring them any benefits. The rest of the people, especially those who had been against Lin Yi, only dared to stay away from Lin Yi now, but there was one exception. In the face of Lin Yi, not only did she not avoid, but she took the initiative to come up and deliberately rubbed against Lin Yi inadvertently. This person was Murong Zhen. "Senior brother Lin Yi, I haven't seen you for a long time. I miss you." Murong Zhen greeted him in a coquettish voice. In the cultivation world, strength was respected. It was not out of line for her to call Lin Yi senior brother. Seeing this woman coming to seduce Lin Yi so seductively, Huang Xiaotao on the side unconsciously held Lin Yi's arm. She had already restored her appearance and confidence. Of course, she would not lose to a coquettish woman like Murong Zhen, and she also had confidence in Lin Yi's determination. But subconsciously, she still did not want Lin Yi to have any contact with such a woman with a bad reputation. Lin Yi smiled and patted Huang Xiaotao's hand, indicating that she did not need to worry. He turned his head to look at Murong Zhen and said lightly, "With the past between us, it is a little strange to say that I miss you. Senior brother Lin Yi, you are a magnanimous person. I have eyes but failed to recognize your greatness. I apologize for offending you. Please don't take it to heart," Murong Zhen said anxiously. "Senior brother Lin Yi, please forgive me. Don't play any tricks. If you have something to say, just say it. I don't have time to listen to you beat around the bush," Lin Yi said calmly without turning his head as he looked at the mission board. Senior brother Lin Yi, do you think I can still be the manager of the newcomers for a while longer?" "Don't worry, I will definitely do my best to assist Pavilion Master Ku and Senior Brother Xiao. I dare not have any other thoughts," Murong Zhen said carefully. Although Su Lingchong had returned, he kept a low profile and did not meet anyone. He had never been interested in her. Her only support was Si Hai Xiao, but he had no influence over the three pavilions. She was currently in a very bad situation. Ku Zongla was appointed as the third pavilion master of the Welcoming Pavilion, and Xiao Ran was appointed as the eldest senior brother of the newcomers. It could be said that the power of Blue Cloud Pavilion in the Welcoming Pavilion was completely controlled by Lin Yi's people. She was merely the second senior brother of the newcomers, yet she was completely suppressed by Xiao Ran. Even if she tried her best, she could not fight back at all. Whether or not she could keep her position was completely dependent on Lin Yi's mood. If Lin Yi did not like her and wanted to take her down, it would only take a word from him. She, Murong Zhen, would not be able to do anything about it. "I am no longer in the Welcoming Pavilion, and I will not interfere with the matters of the Welcoming Pavilion. I will give you these words, take care," Lin Yi replied. Yes. "Thank you, senior brother Lin Yi, for your magnanimity. I will definitely keep it in mind." Murong Zhen was immediately overjoyed. After expressing her gratitude, she hurriedly left. Otherwise, if she stayed for too long and made Lin Yi annoyed, she would be in deep trouble. Moreover, no matter what, she was still Su Lingchong's subordinate. If rumors were to spread and Su Lingchong found out that she was purposely trying to curry favor with Lin Yi, it would be quite a disaster. Looking at Murong Zhen's back as she hurriedly left, Lin Yi's lips curled into a non-committal smile. With Ku Zongla and Xiao Ran working together to control the overall situation, her position as the second senior brother of the newcomers was no longer important. She would not be able to cause any trouble at all, so it did not matter if she was removed or not. Of course, Lin Yi also knew that with this woman's temperament, even if she temporarily tolerated it, she would not be so tactful forever. There would be a day when she would stir up trouble. However, it was not a bad thing for Xiao Ran to have such a person eyeing him covetously. Xiao Ran was a good person in all aspects, but his temperament was too lukewarm. Murong Zhen's existence could stimulate his fighting spirit and keep him vigilant at all times, so he did not dare to slack off. This could be considered as making the best use of her. After sending Murong Zhen away, Lin Yi continued to scan through the many missions on the mission list. After a while, his eyes suddenly focused and fell on a trial mission at the edge of the list. The reason why this mission could attract Lin Yi's attention was that its location was in the Wei-Arc Sea near the South Island. Lin Yi did not know any deputy pavilion leader Yao, but he was still very concerned about Lu Bianren's disappearance. Previously he was too far away and could not help even if he wanted to. But now, if he took the opportunity of the trial mission to find Lu Bianren, it would be a good idea to kill two birds with one stone. After taking a closer look at the mission content, Lin Yi found that this was actually a hunting mission, and it was not easy at all. The target was Wu Baoliang, whose strength was at the peak of the late stage of Gold Core. He was a famous evil cultivator in the North Island, specializing in sucking the blood essence of virgin girls for cultivation. Most of the cultivator tribes in the North Island and its vicinity had left traces of this person's crimes. According to the rough statistics of the Law Enforcement Hall, there were a total of 300 women who had been killed by this person. This was only an incomplete count. There were many missing women who were likely to have been killed by this person, but no one thought of him at that time. This series of cases really caused a sensation in the North Island. Because of the boiling public resentment, even the top management of the three pavilions were alarmed. After the Law Enforcement Hall intervened in the investigation, they finally locked the target on Wu Baoliang, the evil cultivator. Unfortunately, at that time when the masters of the Law Enforcement Hall were just about to take action, this person directly escaped from the North Island after hearing the news. Since then he had never appeared in the North Island and had always been on the run. According to the usual practice, the scope of the Law Enforcement Hall of the three pavilions was only in the North Island. Although there had been cases of pursuing people to the ends of the earth at all costs, this was very rare. Only those special criminals who endangered the safety of the three pavilions could enjoy this special treatment. R 1152. Chapter 4220. Under normal circumstances, once a wanted criminal escaped from the North Island, the Law Enforcement Hall would at most inform the law enforcement forces of other Heaven Stage Islands, even if they did not completely ignore it. If the wanted criminal was not caught in a short time, it would become a trial mission, and many disciples of the three pavilions would go to capture him. Of course, the premise was that they had enough strength. In addition to posting trial missions, the Law Enforcement Hall would also provide some corresponding clues and information. For example, Wu Baoliang's most recent sighting was in the Crepe Arc territorial waters. The number of people for the mission is 1 or 2. That's just right. Lin Yi nodded. He wanted to accept this mission. After all, Lu Bianren had treated him well. Now that he had this opportunity, regardless of whether he could find Lu Bianren in the end, he had to at least take this opportunity to give it a try. He told Huang Xiaotao, who was beside him. Naturally, Huang Xiaotao didn't have any objections. As long as she could be with Lin Yi, everything else was up to Lin Yi. She didn't really care what kind of mission they were going to do. Lin Yi nodded and immediately brought Huang Xiaotao to Blue Cloud Pavilion's eldest senior brother, Jia Mufan, to receive the mission. Receiving a trial mission was not a trivial matter. Outer sect disciples had to look for the eldest senior brother who was in charge of the outer sect, while inner sect disciples naturally had to look for the eldest senior brother who was in charge of the inner sect. At this time, Jia Mufan was working not far away. He was surrounded by several Blue Cloud Pavilion inner sect disciples who were also preparing to receive the mission. Junior brother Lin, junior sister Huang, long time no see. How have you been? In the crowd, Jia Mufan recognized Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao at a glance. He immediately took the initiative to greet them with a smile. During the inner disciple competition, he was there to witness it with his own eyes. Even if he was the eldest senior brother in charge of managing the inner disciples of Clear Cloud Pavilion, and in name the number one figure among all the inner disciples of Clear Cloud Pavilion, in front of Lin Yi, he didn't dare to put on any airs of an eldest senior brother. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yi was the rookie king of the inner sect, his strength and potential were not to be underestimated. The key was his identity. He was a disciple personally appointed by Shanghai Tianhua and was about to become the next Ramjia. Even the pavilion master of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Yu Jinyang, had to be kind to him and would grant all his requests, let alone Jia Mufan, a senior disciple who was in charge of the inner sanctum. Don't look down on this kind of position. The higher the position, the harder it was to sit on it. Not only did it require great strength and influence, it also required good judgment. If you accidentally offended a person with an extraordinary background like Lin Yi, you would definitely be punished. Jia Mufan's position as the eldest senior brother in charge of the inner sect had probably come to an end. Senior brother Jia, how have you been? Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao returned the greeting in unison. People respect me, I will respect them tenfold. Lin Yi was not an arrogant and shallow person. Even if he did not have a close relationship with a person like Jia Mufan, he should at least maintain a good relationship with him on the surface. This way it would be much more convenient for him to handle many things in the future. They saw Jia Mufan and Lin Yi greet each other. The group of inner sect disciples who had gathered around to receive the mission tactfully moved aside and walked outside. Although they were also high and mighty inner sect core disciples, they could not be compared to Lin Yi and Jia Mufan at all. However, he couldn't compare to Lin Yi and Jia Mufan at all. He could only step aside for now. In fact, even if they did not move aside, Jia Mufan would not care about them at this moment. These people were more important than Lin Yi. It was clear at a glance. Junior brother Lin and junior sister Huang, are you preparing to receive the mission? Jia Mufan asked with a face full of joy. The purpose of their visit was obvious at a glance. That's right. Senior brother Jia, please report that the trial mission we are preparing to receive is to hunt down Wu Baoliang, Lin Yi said bluntly. Hunt down Wu Baoliang? Junior brother Lin, are you sure you want to receive this mission? Jia Mufan blanked for a moment after hearing Lin Yi's words, and the other Clear Cloud Pavilion inner disciples who were waiting at the side also went into an uproar. Every one of them looked at Lin Yi with more astonishment than before. They were all waiting to receive the mission, but none of them were willing to accept it. In fact, they had not even considered it from the beginning to the end. In fact, the mission to hunt down Wu Baoliang had been on the list for several years. However, it had always been on the edge of the list and had never disappeared. The only change was the location of Wu Baoliang's recent activities. There was no other reason than that ordinary disciples were not willing to accept it. In the eyes of the crowd, this kind of hunting mission was absolutely arduous and unrewarding. Putting aside the fact that these traders were all powerful people, it would take a lot of time and energy just to find these people, even with the information provided by the officials. In the end, it would still be difficult to find them, not to mention that they would have to fight for their lives. Instead of taking such a huge risk and paying such a huge price to hunt down such a fierce person, it was better to use the time to search for treasures. If they were lucky and found some heaven-defying treasure, it would not be impossible for them to ascend to the heavens in a single step. Even if they were unlucky, they would at most return empty-handed. They would not have to risk their lives so easily. There were so many low-risk and high-reward missions, but they had to hunt down Wu Baoliang, who killed without blinking an eye. Wasn't there something wrong with their brains? However, although everyone was surprised, they still did not dare to mock Lin Yi in front of him. On second thought, it might be that Lin Yi deliberately chose such a difficult trial mission to show off his powerful strength. After all, in the previous inner disciple competition, Lin Yi's powerful strength was obvious to all, especially when he teamed up with Huang Xiaotao. No matter who their opponent was, they could kill them in one move. They could be said to be invincible among the Gold Core stage. Although Wu Baoliang, a peak Gold Core stage expert, was fierce and brutal, if he encountered these two he would probably suffer. Not bad. Thank you, senior brother Jia. Lin Yi saw everyone's expression and nodded with a faint smile. Well, since junior brother Lin and junior sister Huang have made up their minds, I won't say much. I will report to you now. I wish you success. Jia Mufan smiled. Thank you. Goodbye. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao cupped their hands and bowed. They immediately turned and left to prepare for the mission. Although they were invincible in the Gold Core stage after teaming up, after all, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were at the early stage of the Gold Core stage. After they went out, they did not have the capital to do whatever they wanted. They had to make more preparations in advance to avoid being caught off guard. In addition to preparing some things that might be used in the mission, the two also needed to say goodbye to everyone. After all, they did not know how long they would be gone, so they did not want to worry about them. In addition to Shanghai Laner, senior brother Ku Bao Liang, Xiao Ran, and others, Lin Yi also deliberately went to tell the King of Rags, who was still at his post. The rest was his old friend Hong Zhong. Chapter 42-21. You're going to the South Island? Hong Zhong was slightly stunned when he heard the news from Lin Yi. He quickly reminded him, the South Island is the base camp of the spirit beasts, and they've always rejected humans. If it's not necessary, I advise you not to go there. Shopkeeper Hong, you've misunderstood. I'm not going to the South Island. I'm just going to the Wuxia territorial waters near the South Island. Lin Yi quickly explained with a smile. Oh, that's not a problem. Apart from the South Island itself, there are many human cultivators living on the islands nearby. Hong Zhong was relieved. He thought for a while and said, the Wuxia territorial waters is a place where people of good and bad mix together. It's said that it's very chaotic, but there's a branch of our Hong Chamber of Commerce there. The shopkeeper is called Wei Xiaodong, and he's an old friend of mine for many years. After you go there, you can reveal your identity. If you need anything from him, just let me know. Wei Xiaodong? I'll keep that in mind. Thank you, shopkeeper Hong. Lin Yi smiled. The scene before him was somewhat familiar. Before he left for Mount Hutsai Tianwu, Hong Zhong also told him the same thing. However, at that time he introduced Kai Zhongyang. This time it was Wei Xiaodong. Now that he thought about it, it was all thanks to Hong Zhong's warning that Lin Yi was able to escape from the Middle Island in one piece and obtain so many benefits. Otherwise, he would have been captured by the Snow Sword faction, since he could not even find a place to stay when he went to the Middle Island. It was unknown whether he could still be alive or not. Thinking of this, Lin Yi could not help but secretly laugh. This was the same familiar situation, and he did not know what the final outcome would be. Sai, there's no need to thank me. Even without my relationship, this is Wei Xiaodong's duty. Have you forgotten that you are now the honorary vice president of our Hong Consortium's Chamber of Commerce? Hong Zhong could not help but laugh. It's still confidential. Without a public announcement from your superiors, he might not even recognize me as an honorary vice president. Your old friendship is more reliable. Lin Yi shook his head. Speaking of which, I haven't seen him for a few years, and I don't know what kind of situation he's in right now. However, if something unexpected happens, young hero Lin, you might as well directly reveal your identity as the honorary vice president. Even if someone suspects it, with the Hong Chamber of Commerce's internal information channels, they'll be able to quickly find the Middle Island headquarters to verify it. Don't underestimate this identity. In a small place like the Verdant Arc territorial waters, no one in the branch will dare to disobey you. Otherwise, it will be equivalent to betrayal, and the punishment will be very heavy, Hong Zhong warned. Okay, I got it. Lin Yi nodded. Although it was said that a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake, he and Huang Xiaotao were going to the Wuxia territorial waters, and they were unfamiliar with the people and the place. If even the Hong Chamber of Commerce branch there did not cooperate with them, it would indeed become very troublesome. If he really had no other choice, he could only use his power to suppress them. After bidding farewell to Hong Zhong, everything was ready. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao immediately set off to the Wuxia territorial waters. As Huang Xiaotao's spirit bird was an excellent flying spirit beast, the two of them naturally did not need to spend any extra effort. 2 people and 1 bird could directly set off from the 3 major pavilions of the North Island to the Wuxia territorial waters. This distance almost spanned across the entire map of Heaven Stage Island, and the journey was not short. Even if the flying spirit beast traveled day and night without rest, it would still take at least 10 days. If there were any accidents or dangers along the way, needless to say, it would be even more troublesome. Fortunately, apart from the fact that Huang Xiaotao's spiritual bird wasn't very aggressive, it had excellent qualities in all other aspects. Not only was it fast, but it also flew steadily and had high alertness. Most importantly, it had super strong physical strength. These few qualities were very rare for a pure flying spiritual beast. In addition, the route that Lin Yi chose at the beginning was to advance along the edge of the coast, so the degree of safety was quite guaranteed. Therefore, the first few days were calm and there were no twists and turns. However, next they needed to cross the vast sea. This could not be helped. If they kept walking on the ground, although it was not impossible to reach the South Island, they would need to go all the way to the Middle Island, and then from the middle island to the south island. The time needed for this would not be 10 days, 20 days, or even a month. It was such a long journey and they had to carry 2 people on their back. Not to mention Huang Xiaotao's spirit bird, even the best flying spirit beast would not be able to keep an eye on them. Moreover, the middle island's surroundings were strictly controlled. Unless the signs of those big forces were hung, they were not allowed to take off at all, let alone cross. This was not a small problem. Of course, if Lin Yi was riding on the special mount of the Island Master's Pavilion in the Will of Heaven, then it would be a different story. Unfortunately, this was not the case. It's okay. As long as we keep enough vigilance, we can avoid any danger in advance. Don't worry too much. Lin Yi glanced at Huang Xiaotao. Seeing her nervous expression, he smiled and comforted her. I'm not afraid with you here. Huang Xiaotao nodded obediently. In fact, she was not unfamiliar with trial missions at all. In the past few years, she basically wandered around the North Island's Cultivators Guild when she had nothing to do, but she rarely left the North Island. Even if she left the island, she would at most go to places like Mount Tianwu, and would not go too far away. However, this time, not only did they have to cross the entire Heaven Stage Island from the north to the south, but they also had to cross the vast sea. This was the first time in her history. In the past, she had heard many rumors about the dangers of crossing the sea. It would be a lie to say that she was not nervous at all. Even so, she always felt inexplicably at ease when she sat next to Lin Yi, and the little bit of panic in her heart also disappeared. Crossing the sea, the most dangerous thing is not the sea beasts below, nor the ferocious birds in the sky, but the cultivators and the sea fog. Lin Yi let Huang Xiaotao snuggle up to him while he analyzed and explained to her to reassure her. Although the martial world is dangerous, human cultivators will not have too big a problem as long as they pay attention and don't let people get close to them easily. As for the sea fog, it is the most fatal trouble. Fortunately, we have prepared in advance, so we don't have to worry too much. Chapter 42-22. Once they were within the range of the sea fog, the map was no longer of any use. Even if there were any signs that could assist in determining the direction, they could not be seen in the sea fog. The only thing they could rely on was the compass. In order to avoid any accidents, Lin Yi specially prepared 2 special sea compasses. He carried one with him and Huang Xiaotao carried the other in case of emergencies. With the compass, it meant that no matter how thick the sea fog was, they did not have to worry about getting lost. As long as the direction was right, they would eventually reach their destination as long as they were careful. However, the compass was not foolproof. Just like the Bermuda Triangle in the secular world, it was said that there were special meteorite magnetic fields in some of the sea areas of the heavenly island that could disrupt the compass. If there was also the sea fog, once they fell into it, it would be really dangerous. Whether they could come out alive or not depended on God's will. Of course, the route chosen by Lin Yi had been personally verified by many people. It did not pass through the legendary Devil's Sea, so there was no need to worry about this. For the next few days, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao spent their time on the vast sea. Although it was a little monotonous, Huang Xiaotao did not feel bored at all. Instead, she was very happy. Strictly speaking, these few days were her and Lin Yi's world. Without any interference from outsiders, they could snuggle with their loved ones and quietly cross the vast sea. This was a romantic scene that many girls longed for. As for Lin Yi, although he had never been very open-minded about this kind of thing, he had to be vigilant at all times and stare at the compass, so he was not bored. This journey was not dangerous. The two did not encounter any trouble. Even if there were signs of hidden dangers, they were quickly detected by Lin Yi and avoided. There were no accidents. Not far ahead, it should be the verdant Arc Sea. Lin Yi looked ahead and his eyes suddenly lit up. He looked at the map in his hand and said, "Really?" Huang Xiaotao was not surprised. Instead, she felt a little regretful. She muttered to herself, "Time really flies in the world of the two of us." "That's right, little Tao. Look, there are many people and flying spirit beasts in front of us. Only a cultivator's settlement like the verdant Arc Sea region is able to survive. That's why there are so many people." Lin Yi pointed ahead. Huang Xiaotao raised her head and looked into the distance. She discovered that she could indeed see some moving dots in the distance. Upon closer inspection, she discovered that they were flying spirit beasts carrying people. This meant that even if they weren't in the verdant Arc Sea, they were already very close. Otherwise, if they were in the distant sea, they wouldn't be able to see a single person from day to night, just like the past few days. "That's great. We can finally find a place to rest," Huang Xiaotao said happily. although it was a pity to say goodbye to the world of the two of them. However, he had been stuck on the back of the spirit bird for the past few days. Even if he didn't do anything, he was still mentally exhausted. What he wanted to do the most right now was to find an inn. Soaking in a hot bath to relax was the highest form of enjoyment. Moreover, in her eyes, as long as she could be with Lin Yi, anywhere was a world for the two of them. Yeah. Lin Yi was also a little excited. After traveling across the sea for so many days, his nerves were tense and he didn't dare to relax at all. As a beginner Golden Elixir Realm expert, he had no problems with his physical strength. However, the mental exhaustion that constantly accumulated was really not easy to bear. He really needed to find a place to rest. As the two of them spoke, they urged the spirit bird to speed up. However, before they could completely enter the verdant Arc Sea, a flying spirit beast suddenly rushed over and quickly approached them. Lin Yi was shocked. He couldn't help but think that he was a little too early to be happy. Aside from the sea fog, the biggest trouble on the sea was other cultivators. Just now, he was a little too happy and relaxed his vigilance, but he was immediately targeted. He turned his head to look at the person on the back of the flying spirit beast. The person sitting in the middle of the main seat was a man wearing a gray robe. From his appearance, he seemed to be only in his early 30s. However, this was obviously not his real age. Cultivators could maintain their appearance forever unless they actively aged or changed their appearance. Otherwise, even after hundreds of years, they would always look the same. There would be no change. Lin Yi glanced at this person. This man was quite handsome and belonged to the idol type that was very popular with girls. If he was in the secular world, he would probably be able to make a name for himself in the entertainment circle. However, with Lin Yi's keen perception, he found that under this person's sunny and handsome appearance, there was a very obvious trace of evil hidden. It was even much stronger than the current Su Lingchong and Meng Tong, making people feel afraid. It was obvious that he was not a good person. Beside this man were two young and beautiful female companions. Although they couldn't compare to a peerless beauty like Huang Xiaotao in terms of appearance, they were still rare beauties of high quality. Moreover, both of them were dressed in extremely revealing clothes. There were only two small pieces of cloth covering their private parts, and the rest of their fair and alluring bodies could be seen for all to see. Coupled with their seductive postures and provocative movements from time to time, it truly caused one's blood to boil. Their dressing was comparable to that of the bar girls in the secular world. Lin Yi secretly curled his lips. The Heaven Stage Island followed the ancient customs, and the concept of men and women was very traditional. They also attached great importance to the guard between men and women. Therefore, ordinary women dressed relatively conservatively. Only a foxy like Murong Zhen would deliberately wear such revealing clothes. Compared to the two women in front of him, they were even more so. In addition to this man and two women, there was a stern-looking middle-aged man on the back of the flying spirit beast. Looking at his ordinary clothes, he should be a servant who sat in front and was responsible for driving the flying spirit beast. However, among the four of them, the one that Lin Yi cared about the most was this seemingly ordinary middle-aged man. The evil-looking man on the main seat was in the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm. He was not difficult to deal with. As for the two women beside him who were wearing revealing clothes, their strength was negligible. They were only in the foundational realm. Only this ordinary-looking middle-aged man, Lin Yi, could not see through his strength. Lin Yi was an expert in the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm. With his golden finger, he could see through all the realms within the Golden Elixir realm. However, he could not see through this middle-aged man's strength. This could only mean one thing. This middle-aged man must be a powerful expert above the original infant realm. Lin Yi could not help but be secretly shocked. To be able to make a powerful original infant realm expert willingly become a servant, what was the background of this evil-looking man? Chapter 42-23. However, Lin Yi didn't plan on interacting with them. After all, they weren't familiar with this place and there was a nascent soul stage cultivator in charge. If they were to fight, it would be extremely disadvantageous for the two of them. Therefore, Lin Yi didn't just sit there and wait for death. After asking Huang Xiaotao to sit tight, he immediately commanded the spirit bird to increase its speed to the extreme. The other party didn't seem to expect Lin Yi to suddenly increase his speed and was caught off guard. In an instant they were left behind. However, before Lin Yi could breathe a sigh of relief, the flying spirit beast quickly caught up to them. In just a moment, it was already on par with the spirit bird they were riding on. Lin Yi was really shocked this time. One had to know that the speed of Huang Xiaodao's spirit bird was top-notch among flying spirit beasts. Only a very small number of ferocious spirit beasts could surpass it. If the other party was riding on a ferocious spirit beast, then it would be fine. However, they were clearly riding a very ordinary flying spirit beast. After taking a closer look, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly narrowed. He suddenly realized that the other party didn't seem to be simply controlling the flying spirit beast. The middle-aged man with unfathomable strength clearly had one hand on the neck of the flying spirit beast. He didn't know what he did, but the originally docile flying spirit beast was now in a ferocious state. It was obvious that it was showing signs of being forcibly controlled and going berserk. Why are you in such a hurry? Are you two going to the Wuxia territorial waters? At this time, the evil-looking man on the main seat raised an eyebrow and asked arrogantly. That's right, we are. Lin Yi replied lightly. Although he was a little unhappy, there was no need to offend people as soon as they arrived. Especially when the other party was a powerful nascent soul stage cultivator. Moreover, Lin Yi also knew that since the other party had the ability to forcibly control the flying spirit beast to go berserk, it was unrealistic for him to rely on the spirit bird to get rid of the other party. He could only temporarily suppress his anger and feign civility. And in that case, let your female companion come with me. I've taken a liking to her. The evil man glanced at Huang Xiaotao from the corner of his eyes and said proudly. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. After being stunned for a while, he became furious. He had been on Heaven Stage Island for more than a year and had seen many things. He even called a legendary figure like the Will of Heaven brother, but he had never met such an arrogant fool. Who the hell are you? Who do you think you are? You want Huang Xiaotao to go with you for no reason and no rhyme or reason. Do you think you're the king of heaven? Huang Xiaotao couldn't help but feel nervous and afraid when she saw the man's lustful gaze wander over her body as if he wanted to skin her alive. She hid behind Lin Yi. Being stared at by this man made her feel disgusted. Sorry, that's impossible. Lin Yi suppressed his anger. No matter how afraid he was of the other party's strength, he couldn't let Huang Xiaotao fall into the hands of the other party. Otherwise, how could he feel at ease? Lin Yi was not a gentle person who meekly accepted adversity. From the secular world until now, he had always not offended those who did not offend him. If someone offended him, he would definitely kill them. Even if he occasionally tolerated it, it was for the sake of erupting in the future. Lin Yi didn't lack a flexible brain, but it was undeniable that the time he truly tolerated was actually very limited. Once someone touched his reverse scale, no matter how strong they were, they would fight to the death first. This was the bloodthirst that was rooted in his bones, and he would never change it in this lifetime. Otherwise he wouldn't be him. At this moment, although Lin Yi could still forcefully maintain his calm, the qi in his body had already begun to stir. Once the other party made any moves, Lin Yi would definitely not hesitate to make the first move. Although the other side had a nascent soul master with them, and their strength couldn't be underestimated, it was one thing if he couldn't defeat them, and another thing if he didn't fight them. This concerned Huang Xiaotao's safety as well as his pride as a man. There was no reason for him to give Huang Xiaotao up. Seeing Lin Yi's unyielding response, although Huang Xiaotao was a little nervous, she couldn't help but feel a sweetness in her heart. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Even though she was in a dangerous situation, she still felt very at ease hiding behind Lin Yi. She believed that even if the sky collapsed, Lin Yi would definitely prop it up for her. This was the courage of the man Huang Xiaotao had chosen. However, in the face of Lin Yi's seemingly gentle but actually unyielding response, the evil man did not seem to take it to heart. He felt that Lin Yi was like air in his eyes. Greeting him was already giving him a lot of face. As for whether Lin Yi would refuse, it was not within the scope of his consideration. It was not important at all. Brat, listen carefully. I am Cheng Qiqian of the Poison Eye Mercenary Group. My father is the leader of the Poison Eye Mercenary Group, Cheng Haonan. As long as this woman is willing to follow me in the future, in the verdant arc territorial waters, you can tell everyone that I am protecting you. The evil man still had a proud expression as he spoke. From his expression, it seemed that the Poison Eye Mercenary Group was a very powerful force in the verdant arc territorial waters. At the very least, this name should be able to frighten most people. Qin Haonan. Lin Yi did not seem to be shocked at all. Instead, he was stunned and frowned strangely. What is this? Is there a gangster in the verdant arc territorial waters? With such a resounding name, anyone who had watched a few movies in the secular world would first think of the gangster of Causeway Bay. In the past, he was the idol of countless youths. It's Cheng Haonan. Brat, you better show some respect. Cheng Qiqian was instantly enraged. Although he did not understand what gangster meant, he could guess from Lin Yi's strange expression that it was definitely not a good word. To him, Qing Haonan was not only his father, but also his greatest protective umbrella. He was also the idol that he had worshipped since he was young. He would not allow anyone to blaspheme him. Oh. Lin Yi replied noncommittally. Then he replied indifferently, regardless of whether it is Qing Haonan or Qin Haonan, she will not go with you. She does not need your protection. I advise you to give up as soon as possible. It seems that this is the first time you have come to the Verdant Arc territorial waters, right? Qing Qiqian snorted coldly. So what? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. So what? Hehe, the ignorant are truly fearless. If you do not know the rules in this place, you will die a terrible death. If she is not willing to go with me today, then you will be soon. Qing Qiqian sneered. At the same time, he did not forget to look at Huang Xiaotao unscrupulously. R1152. Chapter 42-24. From his point of view, an outsider like Lin Yi had no idea what the Poison Eye mercenaries represented here, nor did he know how terrifying they were. However, when this brat comes to his senses, he will definitely wag his tail and beg for mercy, and obediently hand over the woman of his own accord. However, whether he will be able to live until then is unknown. Oh? Then let's wait and see. Let me see how fast it is. Lin Yi also smiled coldly, and the killing intent in his heart surged. Although this Qing Qiqian did seem to have a lot of power, as evidenced by the fact that he had a nascent soul expert as his follower, it wasn't Lin Yi's style to compromise the moment he arrived. Furthermore, he wanted to hand over Huang Xiaotao with both hands. Not to mention whether Huang Xiaotao would agree or not, this was his reverse scale. How could he not be furious? Fortunately, he was unfamiliar with this place. If this was the North Island or the Middle Island, he would definitely directly kill this arrogant Qing Qiqian. In any case, with the combined strength of him and Huang Xiaotao, they were invincible in the Aura's core stage. If Qing Qiqian was caught off guard, he would definitely fall into their trap. As for this nascent soul stage expert, as long as he could escape this calamity, there would naturally be someone else to deal with him in the future. Good, you've got guts. However, I'd like to see how long you can remain unyielding. Qing Qiqian snorted coldly, and then he instructed, Old Kong, let's go. Let's see if this kid will enter Velvet Arc City in a while. As soon as he finished speaking, the flying spirit beast suddenly set off a violent gust of wind and flew into the distance. In just a short moment, it had already turned into a small black dot and disappeared from Lin Yi's and Li Wuyo's line of sight. Looking at the arrogant back view of the nascent soul cultivator, Lin Yi's expression couldn't help but turn serious. However, he was also quite surprised. He thought that since the nascent soul cultivator was so arrogant, he wouldn't have the patience to continue waiting. After all, his and Huang Xiaodao's strength was only at the early gold core stage. They weren't on the same level at all. Snatching was a simple matter. However, if that was really the case, it would instead give Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao an opportunity to take advantage of. The two of them used the frenzied 8 trigrams palm strike. Even if the opponent was a nascent soul stage expert, if he was caught off guard and struck head-on, he would definitely be injured. As for a late-stage gold core stage expert like Qing Qiqian, his fate would not be any better than Su Lingqiong's. However, this required an extremely high grasp of timing. He had to make sure that nothing went wrong. Once he made a move, there would be no second chance. Since his opponent did not underestimate him, Lin Yi naturally would not take this risk for no reason. This Qing Qiqian seems to be a heretic cultivator, Lin Yi said thoughtfully. The other party had repeatedly asked Huang Xiaotao to leave with him voluntarily. The reason why he didn't forcefully snatch her away was probably because he wanted Huang Xiaotao to do it willingly. What should we do now? Should we go back? Huang Xiaotao was a little afraid. After staying in the North Island Cultivators Guild for so long, she knew very well how much trouble a beautiful woman could bring. For this reason, she was very careful and always wore a veil. However, she didn't expect that even so, she would still be targeted by Qing Qiqian. The temptation of a woman to a man was not only a beautiful face, but also a graceful and slim figure. It also had a very fatal attraction. How can we do that? Since we're already here, how can we not do anything and just go back empty-handed? Lin Yi shook his head decisively. At this moment his mood was a little heavy. He had just arrived and he had already provoked such a seemingly powerful local bully. What should he do next for this task? But, from what that person said just now, it seems that he's prepared to wait in Weiwan City. Should we still go? Huang Xiaotao still felt a little nervous. There's no other way. Even if we know there's a tiger on the mountain, we can only go there. Linny thought about it and finally decided. In their plan, the Crepe Arc City was their first stop after arriving at the Crepe Arc Territorial Waters because it was the core of the entire Crepe Arc Territorial Waters, including the nearby islands. It was the most prosperous and core gathering place for cultivators in the area, and it was also the only transit station to reach any other place in the Crepe Arc Territorial Waters. No matter what outsiders came to the Weiwan Waters for, whether it was to obtain first-hand accurate information or to replenish supplies, the first stop must be Weiwan City. This was something that could not be avoided. However, according to Lin Yi's previous understanding, there was no unified force or sect here. Instead, it gathered various complicated forces such as chambers of commerce, mercenary groups, guilds, and so on. Among them, there were a few forces that were the most powerful. They had always been independent, which was similar to the ancient sects in the secular world. However, among these most powerful forces, Lin Yi did not know whether Cheng Ketien's so-called Poison Eye mercenary group was included. After all, the Weiwan Waters was completely different from the North Island. The three pavilions of the North Island could stand for thousands of years on the North Island, but in the Weiwan Waters, even if they were at the peak of their power one moment, they would immediately be replaced in the next moment. This was a very common thing. In fact, even the most powerful force in the world could rarely dominate the Weiwan Waters for more than 10 years. Therefore, there were few powerful forces here, and most of them were new nobles. The North Island and the South Island were far apart, and the connection between them was not close. Whenever there was any movement, it would take a long time. Even if the law enforcement hall updated the whereabouts of Wu Baoliang, it could not be guaranteed how reliable it was. As for this so-called Poison Eye mercenary group, it was even more unknown when the new nobles emerged. Whether it was in the recent month or the recent year, it was even more unknown. But no matter who these Poison Eye mercenaries were, Lin Yi wasn't someone who'd be scared off by a mere Cheng Ketien. He'd even gone into a dangerous place like Middle Island and made a name for himself. Why would he be scared of a mere Poison Eye mercenaries in a corner of the Weiarc Waters? Lin Yi didn't think that Poison Eye mercenaries would be enough to scare him. Oh, no matter what, I'll listen to you. Huang Xiaotao nodded. Lin Yi's simple words made the uneasiness between her eyebrows completely disappear. As a girl, it would be abnormal to say that she was not afraid at all when she was threatened by such a powerful local bully. However, as long as she could accompany Lin Yi, she would not frown even if she had to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames. Wherever Lin Yi went, that was her world. Everything else was fleeting. Well, let's go to Weiwan City and meet Cheng Ketien. Lin Yi smiled faintly and immediately drove the spirit bird to approach Weiwan City. Chapter 42-25. Along the way, there were more and more flying spirit beasts and cultivators in the sky. In less than half an hour, the two of them saw the coastline. Overlooking the bustling town in front of them from a distance, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other with a little surprise in their eyes. From what they knew in advance, Weiarc Sea was a place where crooks mixed with honest people. It was chaotic and there were often bloody battles. They thought that even if it was a place where cultivators gathered, it should not be very prosperous in such a big environment. However, the scene they saw at this moment was clearly a bustling town with unified planning. Such a solemn atmosphere was rare even in the North Island. There was no sign of a bloody massacre. It could be seen that Weiarc Sea was not as simple as outsiders thought. Get ready, we're going down. Lin Yi said softly, and Huang Xiaotao nodded knowingly. She knew what would happen after they went down, and of course she also knew what Lin Yi meant by getting ready. After a while, the two of them immediately drove the spirit birds to land at the seaport of Weiarc City. This was the port of entry and exit of Weiarc City. No matter if you were going by air or sea, you had to start and stop here. This was the unified rule of all the influential forces in Weiarc City. Whether it was locals or outsiders, they must strictly abide by it. Otherwise, if someone rashly drove a flying spirit beast into the sky above Weiarc City, it would be regarded as a provocation to the entire Weiarc City and all the forces in Weiarc City. This was not a joke. In the past, there was a master of a big force in Middle Island who was arrogant and broke this rule without authorization. However, in the end he died without knowing why. Even after the law enforcement hall of Middle Island came out, they could not find out the truth. In the end, they could only leave it unsettled. Since then, no one dared to disobey this rule. No matter how powerful their background was, they had to enter and exit from the seaport. In the end, a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake. These independent forces in Wayark Sea were indeed far less powerful than the top forces in Outer Island, but it was precisely because of this that they were not afraid of those who wore shoes. In this Wayark Sea, unless one could crush all the forces here, even a dragon could only lie down. Even a tiger could only lie down. The two of them landed at the seaport, and immediately a servant came to help guide the spirit birds. All flying spirit beasts including spirit birds could not enter Wayark City, so there was a special farm at the seaport. As long as one paid a certain amount of spirit jade, they could be entrusted without any worries. However, Huang Xiaotao just said a few words to the spirit birds and sent them away. Turning her head, she saw Cheng Qitian standing in front of her with a sinister smile on his face. He was accompanied by a servant and two women. Although she had been mentally prepared for this, she was still shocked to see this person again. She couldn't help but feel her heart skip a beat. If Lin Yi wasn't standing there, she might have subconsciously made a move. I thought you would escape, but I didn't expect you to actually come. I really don't know if I should say that you guys are bold or should I say that you guys are tactful enough. Cheng Qitian sneered with a ridiculing expression. Of course, I hope that you guys are the latter. After all, only those who know what's good for them can live a long life. Moreover, if you insist on using force on a beauty, it would be too much of a spoil, don't you think? My apologies, you seem to be thinking too much. According to your logic, we are not people who know what's good for us. Lin Yi's expression did not change as he replied indifferently, then you are not sensible? Cheng Qitian's expression immediately changed, and his expression became even more arrogant as he sneered, Good, you are a tough nut to crack. However, I want to see how long you can be so stubborn. Since you have come to Wayark City, then don't leave because you will not be able to leave. From your tone, it seems that you can openly kidnap people in this Wayark Sea? Lin Yi's expression also turned cold as he asked indifferently, Oh, your tone seems to be very unconvinced? Unfortunately, in this Wayark Sea, I am famous for dealing with all kinds of unconvinced people. You are right, it really is so. Cheng Qitian sneered complacently. As the two of them spoke, their aura was at daggers drawn, and it immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding passers-by. They stood to the side and pointed at them, discussing spiritedly. All of their words and actions were unhesitatingly favorable to Cheng Qitian's side. There was no other reason. It was obvious who was strong and who was weak, and there was no need to think too much. In terms of strength, Cheng Qitian was a late gold core stage expert, and more importantly, he had a genuine original soul stage expert as his servant. On the other hand, Lin Yi's side only had two early gold core stage experts, and they were not on the same level at all. In terms of power, Cheng Qitian was the young master of the Poison Eye mercenary group, and he was an out-and-out local tyrant. On the other hand, Lin Yi and Lin Yi were completely unfamiliar faces. At a glance, it was obvious that they were newcomers without any foundation. Such a clear and direct contrast in the eyes of anyone, there was no comparison at all. At this time they were watching the excitement, but in fact they had seen it many times before. Cheng Qitian brought people to openly kidnap women. This had never been news in the Wayark Sea. Every 10 days or half a month, there would be such a scene, and everyone had long been used to it. Everyone in the Verdant Arc territorial waters had their own way of doing things, and no one would care about snatching a woman. No one would step forward to cause trouble for themselves. They were just here to watch the show and discuss it for a while. The reason why they had gathered here was because they wanted to see who was the unlucky one this time. There are so many people here, why don't you ask them and ask whether I can kidnap people as I please? Or you can also ask, how many women have I kidnapped here? Cheng Qitian laughed unscrupulously and proudly. When the surrounding people heard this, some of them shook their heads in disdain. The reason why Cheng Qitian could be so arrogant was because he relied on his father, Cheng Haonan, and the Poison Eye mercenary group. Otherwise, with just himself, it was impossible for him to have any original soul stage experts as his servants. Although he was a late gold core stage expert, there were so many experts in the Wayark Sea, and it was far from enough for him to be so arrogant, but no one dared to stop him. However, although they despised this kind of person who used his power to bully others, no one dared to stand out. The Jianghu was dangerous and everyone was in danger. Stepping out to be a hero would not leave a good reputation, and would only become a fool that everyone laughed at. Hearing this, Lin Yi frowned slightly and turned to look at Huang Xiaotao and secretly gave her a look. Chapter 42-26. Humph, now do you know what kind of situation you are in? Until now, Cheng Qitian was still chattering happily, however, I never like to use force on women. Therefore, I'm going to be merciful and give you one last chance. If you nod your head now, what I said before still counts. You can still keep your little." Before he could finish his sentence, Qing Keqian's voice stopped abruptly. Like a duck that was suddenly grabbed by the neck, he couldn't say a single word. It wasn't that he didn't want to speak, it was that the situation had changed so abruptly that he couldn't speak. The reason was simple. While he was acting arrogantly, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, the two weaklings he saw as fish on the chopping board who couldn't fight back at all, actually took the initiative to attack him. What surprised him even more was that the target of Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao wasn't him, but his follower, Old Kong, who was in the original infant stage. Two gold core stage cultivators actually attacked an original infant stage cultivator. Wasn't this a joke? Not only Qing Keqian, the person involved, but even the crowd of onlookers couldn't help but feel like crying and laughing. Even a cornered dog wouldn't do something like this, right? Even Old Kong himself couldn't help but be astonished. He really didn't think that these two people would dare to attack him. This was unprecedented. Even if he wasn't prepared, these two people wouldn't be able to hurt him at all. This wasn't because he underestimated them. After all, the disparity in strength between them was obvious. This was a fact that nobody could change. However, in the next moment, Old Kong's face changed abruptly. 8 trigrams of raging fire palm strike, one from the left and one from the right, hit his chest at the same time. Bang! Old Kong was caught off guard, and he spat out a mouthful of dazzling blood as he was blasted hundreds of feet away. After crashing through several thick walls of the seaport, he finally stopped his body in a sorry state. This shocking scene truly blinded the eyes of everyone present. The two revealing women that leaned against Qing Keqian's side were instantly frightened to the point that their beautiful faces paled, and they cried out in panic. As for Qing Keqian, he was shocked to the point that he almost bit off his tongue, and he was speechless for a long time. The entire place was dead silent until Old Kong climbed up from the rubble in a sorry state. He glared at Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao with a ferocious expression. With his strength, if it was just two ordinary experts in the early gold core stage, not to mention that it was impossible to hit him, even if they really hit him, it was impossible to make him so embarrassed. In reality, before he was hit, with his original infant stage strength, even if he was careless, he would still be able to react in time. However, what he did not expect was that even though he had used his protective chi at the last moment, he still ended up in such a state. It was clearly just two little golden elixir realm ants, but after joining hands, the power of this martial technique was unimaginable. To actually be comparable to a peak golden core late-stage expert, this was truly unheard of and unseen. It was no wonder that these two dared to be so arrogant and take the initiative to attack him. At this very moment, Old Kong's murderous intent finally soared into the sky. A dignified original infant stage expert was actually injured by two golden elixir realm ants. If this news were to spread, he would be laughed at for the rest of his life. Seeing this, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao's heart turned cold. The opportunity just now was already very good. Their frenzied 8 trigrams palm strike had indeed displayed all its power. In order to injure this original infant stage expert, they didn't dare to split their firepower. Both of their frenzied 8 trigrams palm strike landed on Old Kong's body. Even if they couldn't kill him in one hit, they should at least injure him so badly that he wouldn't be able to fight for a short period of time. However, judging from Old Kong's current performance, although he was injured, his injuries were far from the point where he couldn't fight anymore. This person was at least at the peak of the original infant stage. With Lin Yi's current strength, even if he was a perfect golden core early stage expert, even if he joined forces with Huang Xiaotao, they still wouldn't be able to defeat this person. Old Kong, hurry up and kill that man. Leave the woman alive and capture her. Qing Keqian immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and cursed loudly. He didn't dare to make a move right now. Although he was angry, he was truly shocked by Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao's performance just now. Even with Old Kong's strength, he was still injured. If it was him, wouldn't he be dead? Yes. Old Kong immediately responded with murderous intent. In fact, he didn't even need Qing Keqian's command. He would definitely tear this ant Lin Yi's body into 1,000 pieces to relieve the hatred in his heart. Lin Yi's heart sank when he saw this. Even if the opponent was injured, he and Huang Xiaotao wouldn't be a match for him if the opponent was on guard. If they added Qing Keqian, who was at the late stages of the golden core stage, they might really die here today. Lin Yi gritted his teeth. The only chance of survival right now was to grab Huang Xiaotao while the enemy was still afraid. If he could get back onto the spirit bird's back before the enemy could react, they'd be able to escape during the chaos. That way they'd have a chance of survival. However, even then, this chance of survival was very limited. The spirit bird had just been taken away by the servant. Linny just paid attention to the position just now. It was easy to find, but the problem was that even if they took off, the opponent also had flying spirit beasts. Moreover, the opponent could also stimulate the flying spirit beasts to go berserk. Their speed was faster than the spirit bird on their side. Even if their reaction was a beat slower, they could still catch up later. Linny couldn't help but think that he had made a mistake. This time, he came to the Wayark territorial waters and encountered such an unexpected crisis at the beginning. It was really a bad start. However, it was too late to regret now. Linny had never been a person who would regret. What he had to do next was nothing more than to fight a bloody path. He had seen many big winds and waves, so it was not a big deal. However, just when Linny was ready to take the risk, a teasing voice suddenly sounded from not far away. "Hey, isn't this young Master Ching? Why are you so free today? You brought your stepmother out to act pretentious again?" Diske, old Kong was beaten up and vomited blood. Could it be that he failed to act pretentious and failed? It's really delightful, ha. The owner of the voice was a man in a black practice robe. Chapter 42-27. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao were newcomers, so they didn't understand the reason behind it. However, most of the people present were locals. At the very least, they had been here for a period of time and knew the inside story. Speaking of the Poison Eye mercenary group, the father and son of the Qing family, they were famous in the Wayark territorial waters. Aside from their arrogance, another important reason was that the father and son relied on dual cultivation to increase their cultivation. This was also why Qing Qitian often came out to snatch young women. It was because the father and son relied on this to cultivate. Of course, if it was just dual cultivation, it wouldn't have been so ridiculed. The key was that the father and son of the Qing family used dual cultivation to share young women. Therefore, the women around Qing Qitian were jokingly called Little Mother behind his back. Of course, although this matter was known by everyone in the Wayark territorial waters, everyone only talked about it behind their backs. Very few people dared to call them that. After all, it was not good to expose someone's shortcomings. The father and son of the Qing family and the Poison Eye mercenary group were not to be trifled with. If they provoked them face to face, someone would die. However, no matter how powerful the Poison Eye mercenary group was and how they could intimidate the majority of people, there would always be a few who couldn't be intimidated even if others didn't dare to do so. The black-clothed man in front of them was one of them. Lin Yi quietly sized up the man in black who suddenly appeared. This man looked a little thin and weak. He even had a sickly and scholarly aura. However, this was only his appearance. The man's temples were bulging and his eyes flashed from time to time. It was obvious that he had extraordinary strength. Secretly using his golden finger, Lin Yi suddenly discovered that this man was actually an expert at the peak of the late Golden Core realm. He was only one step away from the original Soul realm. However, this wasn't what shocked Lin Yi the most. What really shocked him was the servant beside the man in black. This person's strength was truly unfathomable. Even his golden finger couldn't see through him. It was obvious that he was at least an original Soul realm expert like Old Kong. This time Lin Yi was truly shocked. He had only arrived at the Wayark territorial waters for a short period of time, but he had already seen two nascent soul stage experts. Moreover, both of them were servants. This was simply too shocking. He had thought that although the Verdant Arc territory was chaotic, it was still a small place. There shouldn't be too many masters. Unexpectedly, there are so many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Even the masters of Yuanying realm have to condescend to be servants. This is a treatment that even Shangguan Laner, a princess-level existence of the North Island, doesn't have. It seemed like the waters of the Verdant Arc territorial waters were much deeper than he had imagined. However, after realizing that this servant's strength was not inferior to Old Kong's, Lin Yi immediately came to a realization. No wonder this black-clothed man dared to mock Qing Qitian to his face. He did have the confidence and capital to do so. Qi Wenhan, this has nothing to do with you. I advise you not to meddle in other people's business, lest you bring trouble upon yourself. Qing Zhuqian was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. If it wasn't for the fact that Old Kong was injured and might not be able to defeat the servant, he would have asked Old Kong to fight. Why does it have nothing to do with me? The black-clothed man called Qi Wenhan continued to mock him calmly. You have taken a fancy to this young hero's female companion and want to bring her back to be your stepmother, right? You are so filial. Do you know the ancestors of your Qing family? Their tombs are probably emitting smoke, right? No, not only smoke but sparks, right? If it's none of your business. They are just outsiders who have just arrived. Do you want to meddle in their affairs? Cheng Qiqian's expression became more and more unsightly. The veins on his face bulged crazily, but he didn't dare to make a move. He could only continue to grit his teeth and endure. I'm sorry, you really hit the nail on the head. Qi Wenhan smiled and couldn't be bothered to deal with him anymore. He turned to look at Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao and said, Young hero, I am the young master of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, Qi Wenhan. Just now, I saw that the two of you have extraordinary skills, so I would like to invite the two of you to join our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency as an escort. What do you think? You dare to fight with me? When Cheng Qiqian heard this, he couldn't maintain his composure. He immediately flew into a rage and shouted. He was indeed afraid of Qi Wenhan. After all, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was not to be trifled with, especially now that old Kong was injured. Therefore, even though he was being ridiculed in front of him, he didn't dare to make a move. He was afraid that he would suffer a loss today and not be able to get back at him in the future. Therefore, he could only endure for the time being. However, this didn't mean that he would let Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao go. They were prey that he had his eyes on. They were already meat in his mouth. How could he let them run away for no reason? In his opinion, even if Qi Wenhan helped them for a while, he wouldn't be able to help them forever. Even if he couldn't help them today, they wouldn't be able to escape tomorrow or the day after. However, Qi Wenhan actually wanted to recruit them as escorts for the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. This was absolutely intolerable. This was because this meant that Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao would become members of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. At that time, it would be too difficult to make a move on them. Qi Wenhan, listen to me. I saw these two first. If you do this, you will be breaking the rules of the Verdant Arc territorial waters. If things get out of hand, even your Heaven's Equal Escort Agency won't be able to get away with it. Cheng Qiqian gritted his teeth and threatened. However, Qi Wenhan turned a deaf ear to his threats. He only looked at Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao with a smile, waiting for Lin Yi's reply. As for Cheng Qiqian's clamor, it was as if it was nothing but air. It wasn't even worth a fart. Seeing this, Lin Yi understood. They were both second-generation young masters of the Verdant Arc territorial waters. However, compared to Cheng Qiqian, this Qi Wenhan was much stronger. This Qi Wenhan suddenly stood out to recruit him. He definitely wasn't just being a good Samaritan. This person must have seen that he and Huang Xiaotao had the strength to injure an original infant stage master. Therefore, he decided to intervene midway and extend an olive branch to him. Otherwise, even if he didn't like Cheng Qiqian, he wouldn't have said what he just said. At most, he would take advantage of Cheng Qiqian's weakness and trample on Cheng Qiqian while Elder Kong was injured. Acting bravely for a just cause was rare in the cultivation world, especially in the chaotic Verdant Arc territorial waters. It was impossible for Qi Wenhan to stand up for the two of them for no reason. Chapter 42-28. This was in line with the way of survival in the cultivation world. Otherwise, if Qi Wenhan had no ulterior motives, Lin Yi would have to be on his guard. After all, there was an old saying, those who are unaccountably solicitous are hiding evil intentions. Thinking up to this point, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. He cupped his hands at Qi Wenhan and replied, Us two brothers and sister are going to train in the Weiqian territorial waters for a period of time. Anyway, we have nowhere to go. Since Brother Qi is so enthusiastic, it would be impolite of us to reject you. Good, that's good. Young hero, you are indeed a straightforward person. Come, let's find a place to eat and talk in detail. It can also be considered a welcoming dinner for the two of you. Qi Wenhan immediately laughed and invited them with a hearty expression. Since Brother Qi has instructed us, we dare not disobey. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and laughed as well. In this sort of situation, they had no better choice than to follow Qi Wenhan. If they refused, perhaps Qi Wenhan wouldn't fly into a rage out of humiliation, but Cheng Qiqian would have a very difficult time. Since someone was willing to help him out, Lin Yi wasn't a pretentious person. He might as well go with him first. It was better than staying behind to face Cheng Qiqian and the injured and angry old Kong. As for this Qi Wenhan, whether or not he sincerely wanted them to be his escorts, or if he had other intentions, they could only act according to the situation. After the two sides finished talking, they felt like they regretted not having met earlier. They immediately left while talking and laughing, leaving Cheng Qiqian and the others behind. They were so angry that they couldn't say a word for a long time. In broad daylight, they forcefully snatched away the person that he, Cheng Ketian, had taken a fancy to. From beginning to end, they didn't even give him a single explanation. This wasn't just infuriating, it was simply intolerable. However, no matter how angry he was, Cheng Ketian couldn't do anything at this moment. The other party's background wasn't any weaker than his, and he also had an expert at the nascent soul stage as his servant. If they continued to fight, he would be the one to suffer. What else could he do other than endure this resentment? Good. All right. Cheng Ketian was so angry that he shouted the word good 3 times in a row. Behind his back, he turned to Lin Yi and the others who had gone far away. Unwilling to give up, he stomped his foot and threatened, "If you have the guts, then keep following this surname Qi. Otherwise, if I run into you alone, Remember this, I, Cheng Ketian, want to kill someone. I have never failed in the verdant arc territorial waters." No matter how much Cheng Ketian hooted from behind, Qi Wenhan, Lin Yi, and the others simply didn't pay any attention to him. They continued to chat and laugh as they walked away. On the contrary, more and more onlookers were attracted over. The dignified Poison Eye mercenary group's young master Cheng had truly become a jumping clown, allowing everyone to watch him. Under Qi Wenhan's lead, the group arrived at a high-class restaurant in Crescent City. He specially found a private room and ordered a table of rare delicacies. He was quite generous. After everyone had taken their seats, Qi Wenhan asked, "Young hero, what do you think? I wonder where the two of you are from? Why don't you introduce yourselves?" "Brother Qi, I am Ling Yi, and the person beside me is junior sister Huang. We are both disciples of the 3 pavilions of the North Island." Lin Yi didn't hide anything and immediately confessed his identity. However, when he mentioned the two of them, he used a pseudonym. He didn't say it clearly on the way here. He was afraid that if there were too many people, someone would eavesdrop and tell Cheng Ketian. That wouldn't be good. After all, even if it was a pseudonym, they still had to keep using it in the verdant arc territorial waters. Although it was certain that the two of them would be targeted by Cheng Ketian in the future, as long as they didn't know their names and origins, Cheng Ketian would have to spend more effort to investigate their background. This was relatively safer, and it was better to hide it for as long as possible. Of course, he didn't bring the 1,000-layer mask on this mission. With Huang Xiaotao accompanying him, and in a strange place like the verdant arc territorial waters, it didn't make much difference whether he wore the 1,000-layer mask or not. It was better to simply keep it for emergency use. If it really came to a point where he had no other choice, he could put on the mask, change his appearance, and then hide in the crowd. Who could recognize him? "You two are the disciples of the 3 pavilions of the North Island. That's a big sect. Sorry for not recognizing you." Qi Wenhan suddenly showed an expression of admiration and said repeatedly, "Not at all. We are just ordinary inner disciples. This time we still need to rely on Brother Qi's help on this trip." Lin Yi smiled faintly and secretly observed the expressions of Qi Wenhan and the servant at the nascent soul stage. He found that the other party was obviously less vigilant than before. He deliberately pointed out the background of the 3 pavilions of the North Island and explained that their origins were clear, just to win Qi Wenhan's trust. Otherwise, if he casually made up their origins, although it was not a big deal, it was very likely to be seen through by Qi Wenhan, and then he would really shoot himself in the foot. Well said, well said. Since the two of you are from a famous sect like the 3 great pavilions of the North Island, it's no wonder that you have such extraordinary skills. You could even injure old Kong of the Cheng family. It's really amazing, Qi Wenhan said with a friendly smile, but his words were 30% complimentary and 70% tentative. It's just a small trick. I was just lucky. Lin Yi smiled briefly and didn't mean to say more. Haha, young Master Ling, you're too modest. Being overly modest is a disguised form of arrogance. If you say that, how can I behave? Even if I use all my strength, I can't hurt him at all. Qi Wenhan took the initiative to clink glasses with Lin Yi and laughed at himself. The two of us could hurt him only because he was confident in his strength and underestimated us. If we fight again, we might not be so lucky. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand indifferently. That also shows your strength. Talents are hard to come by. Our Heaven's Equal Security Agency needs masters like you, young Master Ling. Since you two want to train here, why don't you use the Heaven's Equal Security Agency as your backing? At least you can take care of each other, Qi Wenhan continued with a smile. Lin Yi's previous guess was right. Although he had always been a forthright person, as the young master of the Heaven's Equal Security Agency, every move he made represented the attitude of the agency. He and Lin Yi were not related in any way, so how could he act bravely for no reason and offend someone like Cheng Ketian in public? The reason why he did this was actually because of the strength of Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. Although they were only early golden elixir stage masters on paper and were not very powerful, the two of them together could injure a peak early nascent soul stage master like Old Kong. How amazing their strength was. Chapter 42-29. If they could recruit him, he would be as powerful as a nascent soul stage master. No matter how they looked at it, they wouldn't lose out on this deal. Thank you, Brother Qi. We're new here and don't know much about the Wayark waters. Could you introduce the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to us so we can get familiar with it? Lin Yi took the opportunity to change the subject. That's easy to explain. Our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's business is actually the escort business that everyone is familiar with. What we normally do is to help people transport goods to the other large islands. There's nothing special about it, Qi Wenhan explained with a smile. Oh? But we rarely see any escort agencies on the North Island, especially large escort agencies with huge forces. Could it be that we're ignorant? Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and couldn't help but ask curiously. He had been on Heaven Level Island for more than a year and had experienced many things, but he had never dealt with any escort agencies. In fact, he had never heard of any famous escort agencies on the North Island. Usually, if there was something, they could ask the Three Pavilions or the Hong Chamber of Commerce to transport it on their behalf. They wouldn't look for a specialized escort agency. Young hero Ling, there's something you don't know about. The North Island you're on is managed by the three great pavilions of the North Island, and there are branches of various large chambers of commerce stationed there. The environment is also relatively stable and safe, and they all have stable logistics channels. No matter who wants to send something, it's very convenient. Naturally, there's no place for escort agencies to survive, Qi Wenhan analyzed for the two of them. So, there must be a lot of escort agencies on the Wayark waters? Lin Yi said thoughtfully. Yes, young hero Ling, you should know that the Wayark waters are a mess. There's no official power and there's no island master or pavilion master. It's a mess from top to bottom. That's why there are a lot of robbers and this place is connected to many primitive lands. Many cultivators come here because of its reputation, and if they carry the treasures that they've obtained with great difficulty, it's extremely easy for them to be targeted by robbers. That's why our escort agency comes in handy, Qi Wenhan explained patiently. So, the escort agency's business is to escort these cultivators. Lin Yi nodded in realization and said, do you mean to escort the treasures they obtain from their adventures to the other islands? That's right, that's one of the most important jobs. There's another important job, which is to transport goods for some of the local chambers of commerce. Although they have their own logistics channels, they're far less professional and reliable than our escort agency, so when it comes to important bulk goods, they'll entrust us to escort them, Qi Wenhan said with a smile. I see. Thank you. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao nodded. No matter what kind of escort it is, the most important thing is the escort. Only when the escort is strong can the escort be delivered safely. Otherwise, if we can't even get out of the verdant arc waters, no matter how big the escort agency is, it's all for naught. Qi Wenhan's eyes shone as he looked at the two of them. Therefore, it is our equals Heaven's escort agency's honor to be able to invite the two of you to join us. I'll have to rely on you two in the future. You flatter me, Brother Qi is too serious. However, I have a presumptuous request. I hope you'll agree to it, Brother Qi. Lin Yi suddenly cupped his hands and bowed. Just say it. As long as it's within our ability, we'll never refuse, Qi Wenhan said boldly as he patted his chest. The two of us have come to the verdant arc territorial waters to train. We might not be able to stay for long. Please forgive us, Brother Qi, Lin Yi said, choosing his words carefully. That's easy. You may not know this, but there are two types of escorts in our equals escort agency. The first type is permanent escorts. As the name suggests, they naturally have to stay in the agency for a long time. The other type is nominal escorts. They don't need to stay in the agency all the time. They're free to come and go as they please. They can accept missions when they're free, and if they can't, they don't. We won't force them, Qi Wenhan said with a smile. A truly powerful cultivator would never be content to stay in an escort agency as an escort. The equals escort agency's introduction of this system was an opportunity. For an escort agency that roamed the Jianghu, as long as they could satisfy their daily business needs, it didn't matter how many permanent escorts they could recruit. What mattered most was having a strong network and influence. Many nominal escorts, even if they had never delivered a single piece of goods, had their names on the wall. As long as their names were on the wall, It would increase the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's foundation and boost their confidence. At the same time, it would instill fear in the hearts of other factions. In that case, the two of us are suitable to be nominal escorts. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and nodded. However, young hero Ling, there is something this humble one must say up front. Although a nominal escort is free to come and go as he pleases, in terms of remuneration he will only receive the corresponding remuneration for each delivery. If he does not deliver the goods, then there is no such thing as a fixed remuneration. I hope that the two of you can understand and understand. Qi Wenhan reminded. It's fair and reasonable. That's how it should be. Thank you, Brother Qi, for clearing our doubts. The two of us have decided to join the Equals Escort Agency as nominal escorts, Lin Yi said decisively. Great. Come, young hero Ling and Miss Huang, to celebrate your joining the agency, let's have a toast. Qi Wenhan was overjoyed. He raised his cup and downed it with Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao followed Qi Wenhan to the agency. Looking up, they saw a grand gate and a large courtyard. In the middle of the gate, there were 4 large golden words written in bold and flamboyant calligraphy, Equals Escort Agency. They followed Qi Wenhan inside. After passing through 2 large courtyards, they arrived at a large hall. Lin Yi looked around and saw a few cultivators sitting inside. Most of them were golden core experts, but there were also some who had completed the foundation establishment stage. Everyone's strength was clear at a glance. There was no one who couldn't tell. In other words, there were no nascent soul experts here. Today they had only arrived at the Wayark territorial waters for a short while, but they had already seen 2 nascent soul experts as servants. This had truly shocked Lin Yi. He had thought that the Wayark territorial waters were filled with powerful people and nascent soul experts. Chapter 4230. Young hero Ling, Miss Huang, these are the escorts of our agency. Some are permanent and some are nominal. You can get to know each other. You may have the opportunity to work together in the future, Qi Wenhan said. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other, then immediately cupped their hands and said to everyone present, I am Ling Yi from Beidao, and this is junior sister Huang from the same sect. Greetings to all my colleagues. It is my first time here, so please forgive me if I am not considerate in the future. When everyone heard this, their gazes fell on Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, each of them curious. After seeing that both of them had shown their strength in the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm, they did not take it seriously and just nodded indifferently to show that they knew each other. If Huang Xiaotao had not covered her face with a veil, they might have been stunned by her beauty. But now that her face was covered, no matter how beautiful she was, they could not see her. At most they could only see her curves. Even if they were curious, they would not care too much about it. When they came out to travel in Jianghu, what they cared most was strength. Now that they saw that Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao's strength was only average and would not pose much of a threat to them, they did not need to pay too much attention. Seeing that everyone only glanced at each other and then went back to their work with such indifference, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and did not continue to speak. All the escorts here are experts. Young hero Ling, don't be fooled by their lack of words or politeness. But in the future, when you work together, everyone will be able to cooperate sincerely and fight and kill the enemy together. Qi Wenhan saw this and tried to smooth things over while chuckling. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao nodded but did not comment on this. The Jianghu was dangerous and it was normal for everyone to be wary of each other. But Qi Wenhan's words should be right. When the time comes, they would be bodyguards together. If something really happened, they would be able to cooperate with each other. After all, this was their duty. If they really lost the goods, it would not be good for either of them. As the two of them spoke, footsteps suddenly came from outside. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw a slightly stout middle-aged man, accompanied by the guards of the agency, walking in from the outer courtyard. Seeing this, Qi Wenhan hurriedly left Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao and greeted them with a warm smile. Shopkeeper Wei, you are a rare honored guest. I haven't seen you for a long time. How have you been? Qi Wenhan's hearty laughter could easily shorten the distance between them and imperceptibly reduce the guard in their hearts. Whether it was discussing business or making friends, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Even if they didn't know each other, meeting for the first time would make people feel a little closer. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's wariness, he wouldn't be able to get close to him. He would not agree to join the Equal of Heaven escort agency so easily. Lin Yi nodded to himself as he watched from behind. From this alone, It was clear that the young master of the Equal Heaven Escort Agency was not someone to be underestimated. However, the way Qi Wenhan addressed the newcomer caused Lin Yi's heart to tremble slightly. "Shopkeeper Wei? Hee, how have you been? Young master, you're in high spirits, much better than you were in the past." The man replied politely with a smile. Between the two of them, it was obvious that they were old friends who had dealt with each other many times. "Haha, Shopkeeper Wei, you flatter me. Since you, the head shopkeeper of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, have come to visit in person, it seems that there's an important transaction?" Qi Wenhan asked directly after exchanging a few pleasantries. This was his usual style of speaking. It didn't make people feel abrupt. Instead, it made people feel that he was reliable and trusted him even more. Hearing this, Lin Yi was completely sure of the identity of the newcomer. The newcomer was the shopkeeper of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's branch in the Weiark territorial waters, whom Hong Zhong had mentioned to him before. He was also Hong Zhong's old friend of many years, Wei Xiaodong. Huang Xiaotao glanced at Lin Yi. Naturally, she could tell. However, Lin Yi shook his head at her without batting an eyelid, indicating that they wouldn't meet for the time being. After all, the two of them were currently using aliases. They couldn't possibly use aliases to meet Wei Xiaodong. It would be better to leave it for the future when it was necessary. It's indeed not a small transaction. Wei Xiaodong nodded and glanced at Lin Yi and the others nearby. However, he didn't continue speaking. All right. Shopkeeper Wei, please come in. Let's talk in detail inside." Qi Wenhan immediately nodded in understanding. Any transaction was a trade secret, especially when it was a major transaction of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. There were many people present, and if they were to talk about it in public and reveal the exact goods en route, and then it was leaked out, it would be a fatal problem whether it was intentional or not. Who knew when the goods were to be delivered, there might already be a large group of criminals waiting to rob them. The two of them walked side by side through the main hall and entered the inner room to discuss in secret, leaving Lin Yi and the others to wait outside. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully as he watched the scene unfold. From the looks of it, even though Qi Wenhan was only the young master of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency in name, the fact that he was able to make the decision to do business with a big client like Wei Xiaodong meant that he was already half a master. No wonder even someone as arrogant and condescending as Qing Qitian was so afraid of him. Even if the Poison Eye mercenary group's power was on par with the Equal Heaven Escort Agencies, even if they were both young masters, if one was a pure second generation and the other was half a master, the difference in status was not small. Among all the second generations that Lin Yi had seen before, this Qi Wenhan was definitely the most mature and experienced. He was definitely not one to be underestimated. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Qi Wenhan accompanied Wei Xiaodong out. The two of them were full of smiles. It was obvious that they had already discussed the business and the price. The next step would be to transport the goods from the Hong Chamber of Commerce to the Equal Heaven Escort Agency and prepare for the delivery. However, before that, there was another very important matter, and that was to confirm the escorts that would be accompanying them on this trip. Everyone please pay attention. I have just discussed a business deal with Shopkeeper Wei. It is to deliver a delivery on behalf of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. The destination is the Fong family manor on Eagle Rock Island. The reward for personally delivering the goods to Manor Master Fong's manor will definitely be generous. If any of you are interested in this delivery, you can sign up now. Qi Wenhan's gaze swept across everyone present as he introduced in a clear voice. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone present looked at each other, but none of them had any intention of signing up. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. As the saying went, men die in pursuit of wealth, while birds die in pursuit of food. Qi Wenhan had already clearly stated that the reward for this delivery would be generous. With his status as the young master, he couldn't possibly lie through his teeth. Moreover, everyone present was an escort that had come for the benefits. It couldn't be that they couldn't swallow their pride, so there was no need to be so modest, right? Unbeknownst to them, the reason why everyone was so afraid was because this delivery was really not going to be easy. Chapter 4231. The Hong Chamber of Commerce was indeed a big client. Every time they visited, it would be a big deal. As long as everything went smoothly, the reward for one escort trip would be equivalent to 10 other trips. This was a well-known fact among the escorts. However, at the same time, a high reward usually meant a high risk. For a top-notch chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, even in a place like the Fleecy Arc territorial waters, it had its own logistics channels. Under normal circumstances, they would not need the escort agency's help. However, once they did, it meant that the escort trip was beyond their capabilities. One could imagine how difficult it would be. What made everyone flinch was that the destination of the escort trip was Rock Island. In terms of geographical location, although Rock Island was a small island in the fleecy Arc territorial waters, it was the closest to the South Island among all the small islands in the fleecy Arc territorial waters. The South Island was the gathering place of the spirit beasts. Ferocious spirit beasts could be found everywhere, and all of them were extremely aggressive. For ordinary human cultivators, it was an absolute forbidden area. The Rock Island was too close to the South Island. If one was not careful, they could easily attract the attacks of those spirit beasts. Apart from the threat of the spirit beasts, Rock Island had an even more deadly threat, the miasma. The miasma was unique to the South Island. To a certain extent, it could be seen as a combination of miasma and sea fog. It never dissipated throughout the year. To the spirit beasts, who had powerful physiques and senses that far surpassed humans, it was not a big deal. However, to human cultivators, it was extremely fatal. Not only was the visibility extremely low when one was trapped in the miasma, but it was also highly toxic. Even a powerful cultivator would not be able to withstand it after staying for a long time. Rock Island was too close to the South Island, so it was shrouded in the miasma all year round. The locals who lived on the island all year round had a certain immunity to the miasma because they had been bathing in medicinal herbs since they were young. However, it was a huge headache for outsiders. Therefore, normal people would not go to Rock Island unless it was absolutely necessary. It was no surprise that the escorts were flinching. Everyone here is an escort from the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. We've never mistreated you. As the saying goes, soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single day. Now that things have come to a head, everyone is so polite. That's not very good, is it? Seeing this, Qi Wenhan's originally sunny and kind face suddenly couldn't hold on. The Hong Chamber of Commerce was not only a regular customer, but it was also a huge force. Their relationship was not just purely business, but also a strategic partnership that supported each other. No matter what, he could not reject Wei Xiaodong's request. No matter how difficult the delivery was, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency would not only accept it, but they would also ensure that nothing went wrong. Qi Wenhan also knew that this escort mission would not be easy. Those nominal escorts would shrink back at the sight of it. That was understandable, but the problem was that there were also permanent escorts at the scene. They spent a lot of money on them, but they retreated at the critical moment. How could he do that? Seeing Qi Wenhan's uneasy expression, the escorts couldn't help but feel embarrassed, especially the ones who were permanently stationed here. They didn't even dare to look him in the eye. Even so, they weren't willing to accept this mission. Young master, it's not that we don't want to accept it, but we've already accepted other offers. We can't just abandon them. Someone braced himself and replied. I can understand that, but it can't be that everyone here is like that, right? Qi Wenhan frowned. Young master, I'll go. Finally, one of the escorts stood up. I'll go too. At the same time, another one stood up. However, aside from these two, there was no one else. These two were permanent escorts, and they didn't have any other scheduled missions on hand. They were relatively free at the moment, and if they didn't stand up now, they would lose face. That was why they had no choice but to do it. Even if the other people were permanent escorts, as long as they had a good reason, they wouldn't be willing to accept this kind of job. As for the nominal escorts who were free to come and go, there was no need to even mention them. Whether or not they wanted to accept the mission depended on their mood, and the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency had no control over them. Is there anyone else who wants to go? This time there are more goods and we need at least 4 escorts to escort them. Although Qi Wenhan's expression had softened a little, he was still in a difficult position. At least 4 escorts were required to escort the goods. This was Wei Xiaodong's request, and it was also the bottom line to ensure the safety of the goods. However, this mission was to Rock Island, and it was already good enough to have 2 escorts. It would be difficult to get 4 at once. Fortunately, these escorts were only a portion of the total number. There were still many escorts who hadn't arrived yet. Qi Wenhan believed that as long as the mission was posted, it wouldn't be a problem to gather 4 escorts. They would just have to wait for 2 more days. Of course, this was a last resort. The dignified Equal of Heaven Escort Agency needed 2 more days to gather 4 escorts. Wouldn't they be looked down upon and become a laughing stock? Qi Wenhan swept his gaze across the crowd, and his eyes finally fell on Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. He was secretly hopeful. After all, according to the rules, the Equal of Heaven escort agency couldn't force the nominal escorts to accept any missions. Everyone else present was thick-skinned and wily. Instead of counting on them, it was better to count on these two newcomers. Seeing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but hesitate. Although he didn't have much of an impression of Rock Island and didn't know the specific difficulties of this mission, he could already tell from the expressions of the others that this was definitely a hot potato. If it were any other time with his cautious temperament, he definitely wouldn't rashly step out and step on this mine. However, on second thought, with his and Huang Xiaotao's current situation, it was actually not a bad choice to take advantage of this opportunity to go out for a while. That fellow Qing Keqian had clamored in front of everyone, saying that he would keep a close eye on the two of them. Once they were discovered to be alone, he would definitely come looking for trouble. With his and Huang Xiaotao's current strength, they were definitely not a match for his servant who was a peak early nascent soul realm expert. Rather than passively hiding in the Equal of Heaven escort agency and being unable to go out, it was better to take this opportunity to temporarily leave Wei Qian City for a while. At that time, even if Qing Keqian wanted to find the two of them, it wouldn't be so easy. However, how dangerous was this mission to Rock Island? Was it worth it to accept this mission to escape from Qing Keqian's sight? Lin Yi still needed to carefully weigh the pros and cons. Chapter 42-32. Good. Young hero Ling and Miss Huang are indeed disciples of a large sect. Such courage is truly admirable. I will remember it. Qi Wenhan was overjoyed. The way he looked at Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao became more and more kind, and there was even a hint of gratitude. After all, from a certain point of view, Lin Yi's bravery had indeed helped him out of trouble. At least he did not lose face in front of Wei Xiaodong. Just based on this point, he would remember Lin Yi's kindness. The two of us have just arrived here, and we are indebted to Brother Qi for accepting us so warmly. Since there is a place where we can be of use, we naturally have to do our best. This is what we should do. Lin Yi smiled. You two are so loyal. I really did not misjudge you. Qi Wenhan patted Lin Yi's shoulder happily. He then pointed to the two escorts who had just stood up and said, "Let me introduce you. These two are the permanent escorts of our escort agency, Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan. They are very experienced in escorting goods. I hope you can cooperate sincerely." Lin Yi looked at the two. Li Yanji was an expert at the peak of the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm. Guan Ziyuan was slightly weaker. He was a middle-stage Golden Elixir realm expert. Greetings, brother Guan. I hope you two can forgive us and take care of us. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and took the initiative to greet them. Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan did not answer. They only cupped their hands. Their reactions were as cold as before. The two of them clearly looked down on Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao. This was human nature. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao's strength were only at the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm. They were much weaker than the two of them. This meant that if the escorts encountered an unexpected situation, they would not be of much help. Moreover, they could easily become the other party's breakthrough point and become a complete burden. Moreover, in their eyes, these two had just arrived and did not know anything. They stood up to accept the mission at this time. They were probably here to flatter their young master. There was really no need to look up to them. However, Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao didn't seem to feel their disdain at all. They didn't have the slightest change in expression, and their expressions remained the same. Qi Wenhan saw all of this and couldn't help but shake his head inwardly. Although Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan were experienced escorts in the escort agency, when compared to Lin Yi and Li Yanji, it was obvious who was superior. In terms of strength, the Lin Yi duo could injure a peak early Yuanying stage master like Old Kong head-on, which was evaluated as unfathomable. That was not an exaggeration at all. On the other hand, Li Guan and the other man probably could not even defeat an ordinary late-stage Gold Elixir realm master. What right did they have to look down on others? In terms of bearing, Lin Yi and Li Guan were neither servile nor overbearing. They were indifferent to favors or insults. On the other hand, not only did Li Guan fail to see reality clearly, they even thought that they were a cut above the others and were inferior to them. It was far more than 108,000 miles. Previously, Qi Wenhan had felt that Li Guan and Zhang Xian were still all right. However, compared to Lin Yi and Zhang Xian, they were simply on a completely different level. However, Qi Wenhan didn't say anything more. Otherwise, if he made Li Guan and Zhang Xian unhappy and caused discord between them, this escort mission would really be a disaster. After choosing the escorts, a group of people immediately came to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yi took a look and found that the architectural style was exactly the same as that of the North Island branch. It was just that the scale was slightly smaller, but it was still generous and imposing. Under Wei Xiaodong's guidance, Qi Wenhan brought Lin Yi and the other 3 people to personally inspect the goods. They were all boxes that had been sealed long ago and no one knew what was inside. This was to prevent the escorts from stealing. It was a rule of the trade. When the time came, the 4 of them only needed to send the sealed boxes to Fang House on Rock Island untouched, and it would be considered a success. If any of the sealed boxes were to be destroyed, it would be their responsibility. After checking, Qi Wenhan gave Lin Yi and the other 3 a map of the Wei-Arc territorial waters. What was different from ordinary territorial maps was that there was a new route marked on it. It was personally marked by Qi Wenhan, and it was the route that the 4 of them would take. The reason for this was also a rule of the trade. In order to prevent spies from appearing, the specific route for any escort mission was absolutely confidential. It would only be handed over to the escorts before the mission. As long as the route was not leaked, even if the scoundrels got wind of it in advance and found out about the destination, they wouldn't be able to wait for them. This was because they didn't know which route was the real one. When everything was ready, Wei Xiaodong walked over and repeatedly reminded Lin Yi and the others, "My Hong Chamber of Commerce will be in your hands this time. The goods this time are very valuable. To be honest, the value is at least 300,000 spirit jades. This is an astronomical figure, and if something goes wrong, the consequences will be unimaginable. I hope that you will do your best. When you return, I will hold a celebratory feast for you. There will be other rewards. Don't worry, shopkeeper Wei. We won't dare to be negligent." Lin Yi and the others shivered. 300,000 spirit jades was not a small number at all. It was indeed a big deal. "According to the route I gave you, if everything goes smoothly, you will not encounter any pirates. In fact, it will be a deserted area. However, this doesn't mean that there is no risk." Qi Wenhan also reminded them, "There is an old saying in our escort agency. Danger always happens when it's impossible. You must be vigilant and not let your guard down. Young master, don't worry. This is not our first time on an escort mission. We know what to do." Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan nodded in agreement. "All right. Both of you are experienced escorts, and this is a heavy responsibility. Young Master Ling and Miss Huang are both newcomers and they don't know much about our trade. I hope that you'll be able to teach us a thing or two, and do your part for our equal escort agency." Qi Wenhan cupped his hands in greeting. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao followed suit. "Yes, we know what to do." Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan looked at each other. After exhorting them, the 4 of them did not linger. After bidding farewell to Qi Wenhan and Wei Xiaodong, they immediately set sail from the seaport. The route that Qi Wenhan had given them just now had already indicated that they had to travel by water and not by air. "Brother Li, Brother Guan, I have a question in my heart, and I would like the 2 of you to enlighten me. Why are we taking the water route and not flying spirit beast?" Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously. Huang Xiaotao was equally confused. Chapter 42-33. Moreover, although the goods entrusted by Wei Xiaodong this time were extremely valuable, they were not big in size. Even with the 4 escorts, 2 flying spirit beasts were enough to handle it. No matter how one looked at it, it was much more cost-effective than going by water. Li Guan and Li Yinji looked at Lin Yi in disdain. They did not want to talk to him at first, but they remembered Qi Wenhan's special instructions before they left, so they could only explain patiently. Rock Island is only a few dozen miles away from the South Island. Not only is there miasma everywhere, but there are also many powerful spirit beasts in the nearby airspace. If ordinary flying spirit beasts fly into their territory, they are likely to be attacked. By then they will be living targets. They are simply courting death. Li Yinji curled his lips and said, "But is there no danger in the sea?" Lin Yi was stunned. The spirit beasts were terrifying, but according to his understanding, the sea beasts were definitely not easy to deal with. "Yes, there is no danger in the sea." Li Yinji looked at Lin Yi in disdain and continued to explain, "Although the sea beasts wreak havoc in the sea, they never dare to approach the South Island. Therefore there have never been any sea beasts in the sea near the South Island." "I see. Thank you for your advice, Brother Li." Lin Yi nodded and thanked him. Li Yinji's originally disdainful expression eased a little. He nodded slightly and did not say anything. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't mind it too much. He was thinking about what the ghost had told him before. The spirit beasts claimed to be the rulers of all the spirit beasts in the world, but even if the stronger spirit beasts on the other islands didn't acknowledge it, they had never conquered the sea beasts. The spirit beasts and the sea beasts minded their own business. Since the South Island was the base camp of the spirit beasts, it was reasonable that there were no sea beasts in the surrounding sea. However, when he thought about the ghost, Linny could not help but feel a little puzzled. Speaking of which, he had not communicated with the ghost for a long time. However, he could feel that there was nothing wrong with the ghost's current state. It was more like it was cultivating in seclusion, which was why it had been in a state of isolation. As for how its primordial spirit was able to cultivate in seclusion while residing in the space of the jade pendant, no one knew. What Linny was curious about now was that they were so close to the South Island. What kind of attitude would that thing have? After all, it was an elder of the spirit beast clan. Even if it didn't complete its mission, it should have some thoughts about returning to this place. However, Linny didn't want to disturb the ghost if it didn't come out of seclusion. He could only wait for it to come out of seclusion in the future. While they were talking, the sailboat took advantage of the wind. What Linny didn't know was that not long after they left, Cheng Qitian and his men chased after them. What about that Ling Yi? Where is it? Cheng Jutian scanned the busy dock. He couldn't help but ask anxiously when he didn't see Lin Yi's shadow. The power of the Poison Eye mercenary group was indeed not to be underestimated. It had only been a few hours since Lin Yi had used the alias Ling Yi. Moreover, he hadn't used it in public, but it had been found out by their minions. He had just received news from his minions that Ling Yi. He actually appeared at the seaport again. He didn't expect that he would get the chance to take revenge so soon. Cheng Qitian immediately rushed over with Old Kong without saying anything. Just in case, he also specially brought a few more masters above the late stage of the Gold Core realm from the mercenary group. In this way, even if Qi Wenhan was present, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Young Master Cheng, they have left. A man who was responsible for keeping an eye on the dock replied weakly. What? Left? Cheng Qitian suddenly became angry. He kicked the man to the ground and scolded, "Useless trash. You saw them leave but you didn't stop them. You just watched them leave?" "Yeah. Young Master Cheng, it's not that I don't want to, but I really don't dare to. They are using the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency as an escort. Moreover, they are goods from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. How would I be so daring?" The man was about to cry. In a place like the seaport, if he directly made a move on Ling Yi, normal people would think that he was robbing. He would offend the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and the Hong Chamber of Commerce at the same time. How would he survive in the future? They went on an escort trip? Only then did Cheng Qitian's expression soften. If that was really the case, not to mention his underlings, even he wouldn't dare to do it himself. After all, even the Poison Eye mercenary group wouldn't dare to offend these two groups at the same time. Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. It's absolutely true. The man nodded hurriedly. Humph, then I'll let you off this time. Cheng Qitian snorted coldly. Then, he looked at the distant sea and growled with a ferocious expression. Went on an escort trip? Very well, I don't believe that you won't come back. Wait, what did you say? They are escorting the Hong Chamber of Commerce? That's right. The man nodded. Hee, that's good. Cheng Qitian said something inexplicable, then turned and walked away. They traveled for 3 consecutive days. Just like what Qi Wenhan had said before they left, the journey was uneventful. They didn't encounter any danger or accidents. However, Lin Yi and the others didn't let their guard down because of this. The 4 of them took turns to stand guard on the lookout. If there was even the slightest movement, they would immediately sound the alarm. However, although there was a lookout, the line of sight was not good. The sea surface was completely shrouded in sea fog, and the visibility was so low that it made one's hair stand on end. According to what Lin Yi knew, the fog would only get thicker as they continued to move forward. Moreover, it would gradually turn from a non-poisonous sea fog to a poisonous miasma. This meant that they weren't far from Rock Island. According to Li Guan and Ling Yi, they would have to take special anti-miasma pills to prevent being poisoned too deeply. After all, even a Golden Core expert's resistance was limited. Of course, it was also because of the thick sea fog that this place was so deserted. Moreover, they didn't have to worry about sea beasts attacking them, so there was almost no danger to speak of. Other than taking turns to stand guard and maintain sufficient vigilance, the only thing the 4 of them had to do was to control the direction of the sailing ship according to the needle of the compass. For a Golden Core expert, as long as they practiced a little, it wasn't difficult to control the ship. At this time, Guan Ziyuan was standing guard on the lookout. Li Yanji was in the cockpit controlling the ship. Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao stood on the deck and looked around. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.